The 12th year of the college football playoff and the second season of a 12-team field, and the committee is faced with the most difficult and controversial decision in the history of the playoff. On Championship Saturday, two thrilling conference title games, one of them in the Big Ten, certainly established a new number one team in the bracket in Big Ten champion Indiana. The ACC title game wreaked havoc with the final spot in the field when 5-loss Duke took down Virginia and maybe squeezed the ACC out altogether. But it was a giant dud of a game that could just mean more in long-term ramifications. Georgia's beatdown of Alabama in the SEC could pop the Tide's bubble while opening the door for both Notre Dame and Miami to find a spot in the bracket. But that comes with potentially earth-shaking impact on the future postseason framework. The decisions are due for the present right now. 12 teams in the college football playoff, and it's revealed exclusively in moments.
Welcome to the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
The day has arrived. The bracket is empty. It will not stay that way for long. A 12-member committee in Grapevine, Texas had, in my judgment, the most difficult decision in the history of the playoff, not just the 12-team years, of which we are in the second, but also in the 4-team era. There's no right answer here. Only wrong ones need apply, or at least there are better and worse answers. How did they arrive? There are a lot of people waiting with anticipation to find out what their playoff fate is. Some hanging in the balance, some breaking through for the first time. And we have people all over the country, 11 different reporters waiting for reaction to what the committee's decisions are. We'll talk about the teams who are sitting right on the bubble, most notably Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami primarily. Could there be other surprises as we begin this pursuit for the College Football Playoff National Championship Trophy? Reese Davis, Booger McFarland, Greg McElroy, and for the 12th consecutive year, all of the playoff years.
Welcome back,
Joey
Reese.
Galloway's
Welcome
here.
back.
Welcome back, Joey. It's so good to have you here. Joey locks in. He stays for the whole show. We're ready to go, Joey.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. This is going to be really, this is a difficult decision, Booger, and I'm not trying to absolve the committee of anything. That's why they're there. But, boy, there will be consequences no matter what they decide at the end of the bracket.
It's going to be consequences. And anytime you have a subjective measure like this, you have to have something to stand on. The resumes are complete right now. And all the process long, we've been comparing Miami and Notre Dame, and the head-to-head has been talked about. Well, now that the resumes are complete, it's time to bring Alabama into this conversation. 10-3 Alabama, who they lost to, how they lost yesterday. And so I can't wait to see how this committee brings Alabama and compares them with Notre Dame and Miami. That, to me, is fascinating.
Let's keep in mind some resumes were complete before yesterday. And let's keep that in mind. This is the first year I wanted to go 4. I thought it was great. I didn't want to go to 12. Then we went to 12, and I said, hey, man, this 12 was pretty doggone good. This is the first year I'd like to have more. Give me more. There are teams in this year's season, you can say Texas, you can say Miami, you can say Vandy. There are teams that won't get into this playoff that could absolutely get in and win it if they got hot. I wish we could expand it, but we can't. We only get 12, and it's a tough decision.
It's brutal. And like you said, I think whatever team's left out amongst those three could theoretically win 4 games in a row and go chase a championship. I think Alabama's in. I feel pretty confident in that because they created that precedent last year with how they handled SMU. They do not want to de-incentivize participation in a conference championship game. So I think Bama's in a good spot, which takes us to the conversation between Notre Dame and Miami. In an effort to have better perspective on that matchup, I went back and watched that game from week 1. Notre Dame had no idea who they were. They didn't know their offensive identity, and they have since improved greatly. If they played tomorrow, I'd pick Notre Dame to win that game. But they don't play tomorrow. They played in week 1, and I went back and watched it, and Miami handled them along both lines of scrimmage. And I think if the committee went back and refreshed their memory on what that game looked like, they might lean towards the Hurricanes over the Irish.
They have not done that in any of their rankings up to this point, and with neither of them playing, that would be a question to be answered if, in fact, that's the decision that they ended up making. Kirk Herbstreit is with us now. Kirk, you've watched this from the beginning. You've covered this sport and been part of this sport your entire life. What are your expectations, and what level of controversy do you expect, regardless of the decision that's made by the committee?
Good morning. Yeah, you guys are all over. Let's not forget Duke winning as well. So more than likely get an opportunity to see Tulane and JMU, more than likely, I would think, get into this thing. But I think how they handle BYU, BYU losing a bonus game, as Greg just alluded to, are they going to be punished for losing the second time to Texas Tech, therefore putting Miami right next to Notre Dame? That would give Miami the head-to-head that they've been clamoring about for weeks and weeks. That would be the first time they'd be right next to each other. That would put Miami in. And I think, Boog, I'm with you. I think it's more of a Notre Dame-Alabama debate. I think that's probably what's given them the most headaches throughout the night and trying to figure out, well, Notre Dame has this eye test. They're playing really great football. Yeah, but Alabama went to Athens. They went to Athens and beat the same team they lost to in the bonus round. So, Greg, I think this not just the game, the way it went with Miami and Notre Dame, I just think Alabama, it'd be interesting to see how they handle that when it comes to that big data point of going to Georgia and winning that game. That's going to be an interesting way to see how they decipher between Georgia beating them yesterday and Alabama winning in Athens.
Kirk, how would you evaluate these teams? Not just in terms of picking a winner, but like what would you value the most in evaluating teams who are close together and both have different points on their resumes or on their bodies of work?
Well, I just think if it's Miami and Notre Dame, I think the head-to-head finally at the end of this, when the dust settles, I think they're close enough that where the head-to-head comes into play. I think that's a significant data point that will give Miami the nod. That just based on the way they've taught us over these years, I think that if they're 2 or 3 spots away, I don't think head-to-head would come into play. But I do think if you get close enough, I think that's a pretty strong argument. Obviously, head-to-head should matter. Then I think with Notre Dame and Alabama, that's so difficult. I mean, and Joey's right. You could throw Texas into that argument, Vanderbilt into that argument. It's very, very tough how you separate those teams, because I think we all love how Marcus Freeman's team is playing on the field. How can you not? And then you could say, yeah, but who have they beaten during this 10-game winning streak? What really stands out? They went to Pitt, they beat USC, but is that enough when you still have that most significant thing to me? And I think, again, Greg alluded to it, going into Georgia. You could argue that's maybe the best win of the year across the entire country for any team. That's what, for me, I would be really struggling with. Eye test with Notre Dame against inferior opponents, or that impressive win by Alabama. I'll be very candid. Alabama's been leaking oil, in my opinion, during the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks, especially offensively. But will that matter when it comes to still, as they're looking at the entire season, the fact that they had one of the best wins in the country going into Georgia and beating them?
It'll also be interesting to see where Vanderbilt is, because they might wind up with 2 of the better wins. Both of them will be better than Notre Dame's. But there's no question, you watch them play right now, Notre Dame looks like, to use an oil metaphor, a more well-oiled machine than the Tide does, particularly on offense. Nick Saban is with us now, 7-time national champion. Nick, as you look at the end of the line here, what's the best way to evaluate teams when you have teams like Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, even Vanderbilt, Texas, BYU, who have things in their favor, but is not really as clear cut? What would you do in terms of best evaluating these teams?
Well, I think it's very clear that there's 7 teams that have established themselves as the 7 best teams. And, even Oklahoma, to me, has an impediment. They had a tough time scoring points all year long. Notre Dame started out not so good, not great schedule down the line, but playing very well and from an eye test, looked like a great team. Then you got Miami, who finished strong but stubbed their toe in the middle. Then you got Alabama, who probably had the most impressive run in the middle of the season when they beat Georgia, and then beat 3 or 4 more ranked teams at the time, all in a row. And now lately, for whatever reasons, and injuries are a part of the game and you have to be able to overcome them, they're not playing as well as they did earlier in the season. And then you have arguments for people like Vanderbilt and Texas and even maybe BYU, and the whole question of how does playing in a conference championship game really impact your season when other people are staying home, and how can they get pushed ahead of you because of that? So there's a lot of issues. Right now, if we had AI and they had all the information, they would have one hell of a time trying to figure out what this committee's got to figure out in terms of these last 3 or 4 teams.
That's the point, Nick. I think there are going to be long-lasting ramifications no matter what they decide. What impact would it have on the conference championship games if Alabama's left out? What impact is it going to have on scheduling should Miami be left out? And Notre Dame, are they going to look at them and say, well, you're not even, there's not even a possibility of playing in a conference championship game, but still, it's Notre Dame. You leave them out, and you also have evaluated the entire time of the rankings that you think they're better than Miami. So there are a lot of things to deal with. Now, 5 reporters in different places, different levels of controversy. Molly McGrath is with Duke, ACC champions there. This is probably a long shot. We've got Molly McGrath against Dana there, maybe looking for a spot in the playoff. But let's start with Marty Smith, where Alabama is probably most anxious today, Marty.
Indeed, Reese, good morning. If you look at 3 key metrics that the CFP committee must consider right now, it's strength of record, strength of schedule, FPI. Alabama is the only team in the United States of America that ranks in the top 10 in all 3 of them right now. I just left Kalen DeBoer's office. He makes it very clear we should not be penalized for earning the right to play in the conference championship game in the toughest conference in the country as the #1 seed. Yeah, we got beat, but there should be no penalty for earning the right to play in that game, especially, he added, while other teams under consideration today were sitting at home watching. We'll see what happens in a few minutes. Let's head up to South Bend, Indiana, where Jen Latta is with the Irish.
Good morning, Marty. Yeah, here on campus, the Notre Dame players and coaches are gathering to watch the selection show. Their confidence is very high. They are confident in the resume that they put together. Those 2 losses at the beginning of the season, just by a combined 4 points to Miami and Texas A&M. They also think that those 10 wins that they strung together at the end of the season were dominant wins by an average of 30 points or more. That's best in the country over that time. And just a few moments ago, I heard from quarterback C.J. Carr, who said this, guys: we have continued to elevate on both sides of the ball. We believe we are one of the elite teams in the country, and we deserve an opportunity to prove it on the field. That's the story here in South Bend. Let's go to Chris Budden, who is standing by with the Hurricanes.
Hi, Jen. Here in Miami, there is optimism and confidence based on what happened yesterday and Miami's resume. But there's also frustration. In talking with Mario Cristobal earlier this morning, understanding why are we even having this debate when you look at all of the metrics of strength of record, same schedule, the identical metrics, the common opponents, and of course, the head-to-head, which is really what matters against Notre Dame. And if you look, since this format started, there's been 13 instances of head-to-head that were played in the regular season with the same record heading into championship weekend. In every single one of those, except for one, the team that won the regular season matchup was ranked higher. That one instance is this same instance of Miami and Notre Dame. While there is uncertainty here in Miami, there is elsewhere in the ACC as well, and that's where we find Molly McGrath in Durham.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Well, the Blue Devils had the day off today to rest after a late-night overtime thriller in the ACC title game. But head coach Manny Diaz told his players to stay by their phones today just in case. So you're saying there's a chance. Diaz is watching the selection show at home with his family, but argued that Duke should be in over JMU because of their strength of schedule and JMU's lack of a Power 4 win. Whereas the Blue Devils just beat a top 20 team that had 1 foot in the playoffs. So I'm interested, Dana, how confident are they over there at James Madison?
Well, Molly, how dare Reese to pit us against each other? But there's certainly some extra emotion from Coach Bob Chesney, who made it official yesterday that he will be the new head coach at UCLA. He did confirm if James Madison hears their name called this afternoon, he will coach this team through the playoff berth. And while no official watch party was held Saturday night ahead of the ACC championship game, star running back Wayne Knight did storm the quad on campus after Duke was announced as the ACC champion. And in this morning, Bob Chesney stating his case, Reese saying we're the best group of 5 school, and it's not even close.
Dana, figuratively speaking on that, pitting you against one another, just the teams, figuratively speaking.
That one man stormed the quad.
well, he stormed the end zone.
If anyone can do it, he can do it.
He's a storm. Really good back. All right, let's look at this. These are the selection principles for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Strength of schedule, head-to-head. Mario Cristobal's been pointing to that one. Comparative outcomes against common opponents. Miami's pointed to that against Alabama, too, comparing the Florida State games. And unavailability of key players and coaches may have affected past performance or postseason performance. An interesting note there because of the calendar. Whoever winds up in the field, you're going to have at least half of the teams who will be without either their head coach or their head coach is moving on, or an offensive defensive coordinator or assistant head coach, associate head coach moving on.
That is amazing.
Over half the field, in all likelihood, no matter how it comes out. In some cases, both coordinators are going. Oregon's going to be in. Both coordinators are going to be on the move. Still coaching now, I get that, but, you know. When you should be the most united is when you are the most distracted. Never distracted is Heather Dinich, who covers the college football playoff for us. So, Heather, and I'm not trying to absolve the committee. This is the business they've chosen. They've signed up for this. This is going to be a very controversial decision, no matter what they decide. What's it been like in the committee room?
It's been tense. Look, they met until 2:30 in the morning local time with most of their focus, debate, and discussion focusing on those 3 teams, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami. But it is important to remember the context of this season, how they've talked about them. While everyone outside the room is focusing on the head-to-head between Notre Dame and Miami, in the room this season, they've been focused on Alabama and Notre Dame. So the way Alabama played in the SEC championship game against Georgia very poorly opens the door for debate. They will certainly consider dropping Alabama, but how far? Miami needs them to drop to number 11. If that happens, Miami and Notre Dame are in, no matter what you think about the head-to-head. But they will also consider the fact that Alabama has the best strength of record, the best strength of schedule, and the best win of those 3 teams going on the road, beating Georgia, which is now the SEC champs. So they are considering all of those factors, but it also wouldn't surprise me because of the Alabama-Notre Dame angle if they flip those 2 again.
Heather, we will keep an eye on it. In fact, we're going to have answers shortly. I'm told that the rankings have come our way, and we will fill out the bracket. That means for a moment that Zach, our graphics operator, is the most powerful man in college football because they have to give it to Zach in order to type it up.
I like it.
So he knows.
See if I can text Zach.
Yes, Zach, what you got?
No. We'll see them when you do. Rankings unveiled after this.
College Football Playoff Selection Show is presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Welcome back to the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
Numbers are everywhere, all around us, leading us. More than digits in a sequence, they're symbols of success.
The Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go! What's my definition of success? We're not done yet, boys! Listening to what your heart says. Downfield wide open. College football playoff hopes alive. That's a playoff team. These guys deserve to be in.
This is where the line will end and the final test begins for sole possession of the number 1.
Oh, what an interception! It is intercepted! What a
So many numbers in the world. So many teams vying for this prize.
I know I can change. We are not enough. We are not the same.
But who's counting? We are.
The path starts right now with the unveiling of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. The journey goes to Miami Gardens, Florida, Hard Rock Stadium, January 19th. That is where the national championship game will be played. 12 teams in the field, the 5 highest ranked conference champions, no matter which conference they come from, and then the next 7 highest ranked teams after that will make up the 12 teams. So Zach, our graphics operator, has everything ready to go. So let's start with the number 1 team in the final college football playoff rankings. It is the Big Ten champion, Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana number 1 for the first time in school history.
And there wasn't an easier call made today than Indiana number 1. And my vocabulary is not deep enough to say what I think of what Cignetti has done at Indiana in the past 2 seasons. Last season, it was sort of like, okay, Indiana's a pretty good team. It's a 1-year run. And then to come back and do what they did in this season, they hadn't won the Big Ten since 1967. This football team is legitimate. I didn't understand how good they were on the defensive side and what they did in that game against Ohio State.
This is their first outright championship since 1945. Wow. Just this year, they got out of the cellar for the losingest team in the history of the sport. And now they go into this playoff number 1, the Cignetti turnaround. With all due respect to Bill Snyder of Kansas State, the greatest turnaround in college football history. Ohio State and Indiana just flipped spots. So the last 2 national champions have been from the Big Ten, and 1-2 will again be from B1G.
And I think Ohio State, a little bit of question. Would it be Georgia at 2? Would it be Ohio State at 2? Either way, I don't think you can really go wrong. Ohio State's looked dominant all season long. They did not play well offensively last night. They struggled in protection. Julian Sayin missed some throws, and they missed a chip shot field goal that would have potentially pushed that game into overtime. And the committee has looked in the past at, hey, good loss, close loss, we're not going to crush you for it. They don't in the case for the Buckeyes as well, and I think it's probably makes a lot of sense to have them at 2.
Now, we've talked about this quite a bit. Remember, this is different from last year, the first year of the 12-team field, when you had the 4 highest-ranked conference champions getting the byes. Now it's just 1 through 4, no matter what conference you're from. So you have 2 Big Ten teams at the top of the bracket. At number 3, we presume will be SEC champion Georgia, and it is. The Bulldogs avenged their regular season loss to Alabama with an impressive performance in Atlanta yesterday.
Without a doubt. And we came into this thing, I was talking about identity. And when it comes to identity, no one knows who they are more than the Georgia Bulldogs. They are a physical team, and they'll take you to the phone booth. And if you can't deal with them in the phone booth, you got no shot of beating them. Controlling the line of scrimmage. They held Alabama to -3 yards rushing. Hello. And you talk about Gunnar Stockton, his ability to improve throughout the season. And the defense was young early on, but they're seasoned veterans now. I don't think anybody wants to see this version of the Bulldogs.
Somebody's going to, but you'll have to win a game to get there. Remember, last year Georgia got a bye, didn't work out well for them. Notre Dame beat them in the Sugar Bowl. They'll try to put together a better run this time around. Number 4 in the final bye, meaning not getting a home game. And this is the only bad thing about Big 12 champion Texas Tech. Man, Lubbock would have been electric for a home game on campus. But the Red Raiders, Big 12 champion, their first conference championship since 1954. And the Red Raiders are seeded 4th, and there they are in Lubbock celebrating what Joey McGuire and company have done.
Yeah, and what they were able to do is beat BYU again. They forced 3 turnovers, beating them the first time in the regular season, came back and did 1 better, forced 4. That defense against BYU was outstanding. That is a football team. We talked about their offense. Their defense is about as good as we've seen in the country.
So Texas Tech goes in, and you know what? I believe with that defense, they can make a run. I'm not going to be shocked to see them in the national championship.
That front 4, how they get after the quarterback.
No doubt. We have David Baylor, Mello Hyde in the middle, Lee Hunter, defense, and Jacob Rodriguez, best linebacker in the country, might be a Heisman Trophy finalist, if not winner. Now, team that has a home game, seeded number 5. The Oregon Ducks. So 3 of the top 5 teams in the country are from the Big Ten. Dan Lanning's team will open in Eugene.
And I just love when it comes to Oregon, they know who they are. Dante Moore's been playing outstanding. Kenyon Sadiq, the best tight end in America. The physicality they exude, another team that understands what their identity are. Haven't always played up to their par throughout the season, but they're starting to click on all cylinders, and it's going to be a tough ask. Whoever has to go to Eugene and deal with the Ducks at Outson.
And I think this upcoming numbers, the first one where there could be some drama at 6, because you look at it, all assuming that 11 and 12 are going to be G5 teams that won their conference. 6 versus 7 is potentially significant when you take into account what your first round matchup might be. So will it be Ole Miss like it was last week, or will it be A&M who dropped big time after the loss to Texas?
Greg, that is a tremendous setup because it plays a huge role in who your first round opponent is, and it is Ole Miss. Pete Golding's team now seeded 6. They'll play at home against the 11 seed once we get that, which will be one of the last 2 highest ranked conference champions.
And Oxford is going to be buzzing down there. Good for Pete Golding. He's now the permanent head coach. Lane Kiffin, the coach at LSU, allowed the OC, Charlie Weiss Jr., to come back and call the plays. So now they have a staff together, and they're ready to make a run. Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, this defense, they feel really good about what they have now in Oxford, Mississippi.
So Ole Miss will have a home game, the biggest game in the history of Ole Miss football.
The Grove will be buzzing.
It will be. Yeah. They will win the party, and they'll try to win the game. Another home game, seeded 7. Gig 'em. Mike Elko's team lost its regular season finale at Texas, kept them out of the SEC championship game. Good consolation prize, home game with the winner getting Ohio State.
And I got to be honest, if I'm A&M, I have a bit of a gripe, frankly, because A&M, you look at their strength of schedule played, they're sitting there at 16. They're sitting 1 spot behind Ole Miss, whose strength of schedule resides at 41. You can say, well, the best win for Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Well, they went to Notre Dame and knocked off the Irish, who might be a top 10 team and a college football playoff team as well. So the first disagreement I have so far, but still, A&M, excellent football team. It'll be a difficult matchup for everybody.
And then the final team to get a home game in this year's college football playoff, Oklahoma. Now, the Sooners have struggled mightily on offense. Their defense is tough, and we had 3 SEC home games.
And you mentioned the offense. I don't know that I've seen a team in the past few weeks that have defensively made plays when they need to, whether it's a blocked field goal, whether it's a pick 6. When their offense has been struggling, the defense has stepped up and made plays, created opportunities to make it easier on their offense. If they can play that way, they have a chance to make a run, but the offense has to get better.
Okay, these are the teams that have the home games, and while I agree with Greg, there's a lot that you could dispute about Ole Miss and Texas A&M and the order there. This was the relatively easy part for the committee.
Here we go.
Okay, now, because of what we mentioned again, I just want to emphasize this. I'm not trying to talk to everybody like they're kindergartners, but just remember, 2 more conference champions have to go into the field. They are highly unlikely to be ranked in the top 12, so they're going to displace 2 teams in the rankings. So that means there are only 2 spots left. These are the contestants. Alabama, which lost in the SEC championship game, and the much ballyhooed debate between Notre Dame and Miami. So, number 9, who will go to Norman to take on Oklahoma? And it's Alabama who didn't move. Maybe the game that had Alabama sitting on the bubble, they'll get a chance to avenge that game.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this, you kind of saw it going in this direction already with Ohio State being 2. A team that also lost their conference championship game. They weren't overly penalized. They dropped just 1 spot and flipped to the team right behind them to acknowledge the head-to-head. I think they clearly drew conclusions about Alabama based on a 12-game sample size. And that's the way it should be evaluated when you take into account the teams they were being evaluated against had just 12 data points to evaluate. So Alabama needing to get back on track offensively, need desperately to get healthy. But they have an opportunity, like you said, Grease, to avenge that regular season loss.
But, you know, I will say this. I understand the concept of not being overly punitive for a conference championship game. But if you're going to play them, they need to have stakes both ways. to win the conference championship, and what happens if you lose?
They have to count somehow. And we're talking about Alabama maybe having the best win in the sport by going to Athens. They also have one of the worst losses by losing to Florida State.
No question.
So we just cannot erase that. I'm surprised at this move right here.
Okay, well, but the one thing, we'll have time for this. You have to define loss. By record, absolutely. If you go by power rankings, Florida State's still top 30. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just saying all of these things you factor in and try to define them. So now we're down. We're basically back where we started. There's one spot left in terms of at-large teams, and it almost certainly is going to be Miami or Notre Dame. So, number 10, and it is Miami without playing.
Wow.
Without playing on the final Saturday. Notre Dame had been ranked ahead of them the entire time. And now they flipped them, Joey.
Yeah, this is very strange to me. And again, Reese, you mentioned earlier that they hadn't compared these two teams. Well, why not?
They
They're
should have.
humans, and they should have absolutely compared these two teams. We had a ranking come out on Tuesday. If they were going to flip these two teams that did not play, they should have done it on Tuesday. Now, this Miami team, the way they're playing the last few games, they are a very good football team. They have a chance to win just like any other team. But it is strange to me that you have two teams that were sitting on the couch yesterday that somehow flipped in their rankings.
I want to take just a second, and then I'll let you make your point, Booger. There's not a lot of difference in terms of the entire body of work if you're looking at the analytics. Notre Dame's a little bit higher in FPI, which is a forward-looking measure. They're basically the same everywhere else.
So here's the thing, to your point. We do this week in and week out, and it's a beauty pageant. Now that the season is done, it's a resume contest. And so it's very easy to go back and compare these two teams when it comes to the resume contest, because now the head-to-head has to come into effect.
Their resume didn't change from Tuesday.
I know, but everybody's resume is complete from the standpoint of
their resume was already complete.
But
today doesn't change their resume. It was complete when we had the ranking on Tuesday. And so if we're going to make sense of this, as we're trying to watch it play out, if you wanted to make sense, then make sense. If the resume was done on Tuesday, and on Tuesday Notre Dame was a better football team, and the resume has not changed a lick. Two teams were sitting on the couch. Somehow that flipped.
There was one team between them and BYU that lost. It's now moved back. Now, if they're right next to each other, we're assuming BYU's moved back. We don't know that for certain.
Yeah, but Greg, it's true. But the way they do it, it's in larger groups. They should have already been compared.
I
don't differ with the decision.
Correct.
But now nothing. I agree with Joey. Nothing's changed prior to this.
But everybody's resume is now done, and at that point,
their resume was already done.
But the entire season is now done, and now we have to compare the head-to-head, guys, and that's what rules.
It should have been, and they should have gone back and watched it like I did, and like I think several others did. When you watched that game, it might have been a 3-point margin. It felt like
more.
What
makes you think they didn't?
They did. I think they absolutely did.
Okay,
so
they probably did.
Yeah, so they probably did.
Now, this is obviously the most hot-button topic among these three teams, and we'll have plenty of time for that. But there are two more teams waiting.
Oh, we got two more. Let's go.
We've got two more conference champions to get in. You have to have 5. So the 4th highest-ranked conference champion, number 11, is Tulane. By the way, this just in. We've seen this before. Ole Miss won by 5 touchdowns in the regular season. They played Tulane, champion of the American, had a terrific season, but the Green Wave at their watch party in New Orleans, and there they are. John Summerall, before he heads off to be the head coach of Florida, will coach his team throughout the playoff. And how about that? There's another little twist on this matchup. John Summerall is going to Florida. Pete Golding's now permanent head coach, but Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin.
You mentioned the 5 touchdowns. We also saw Duke in Virginia. It was a rematch last night, and Duke came out. Duke lost by 17, I think, the first time. So just because it was a blowout the first time doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a 5 touchdown. John Summerall is a good coach. I think he'll have his team ready to play.
Okay, let's go to the last spot, the team that will go to Eugene to take on Oregon. And it is James Madison. So you have 2 group of 5 teams in there, and it's the ACC champion not making it is a little bit alleviated by the fact that they got a large team in the field. And the streamers are flying at JMU. Bob Chesney's on his way out too, but he will continue to coach the Dukes.
And good for them too. If you watch that football team, they are a team in every possible way. Ton of respect for what they do offensively and defensively. I think Bob Chesney is a revolutionary. This guy is big time. An incredible hire by UCLA, but man, he's got business to attend to, because going on the road to Eugene will be a massive task. But I think that team is tough, man. They'll be tough to beat.
Okay, a little bit anticlimactic, and this will probably sting. First team out, I assume, is
should be Notre Dame. Yep.
Notre Dame. I mean, I don't think that's a huge surprise. The Irish, it has to be gut-wrenching for them after being in the field pretty firmly until last week, then sitting on the bubble and then getting bumped. Second team out is BYU. There are only 2 losses, both to Texas Tech, both decisively. Kalani Sitake has an excellent team, but the committee deems not quite enough to make it into the field. Notre Dame is the team that is on the outside looking in. It is a team that I know Kirk Herbstreit joins us again now. Kirk, I've said I thought Notre Dame, if you just looked at the tape, if you just watched them play, one of the 5 best teams in college football right now. So, Kirk, let's start with you, as Nick and Chris Fowler have joined us as well. What's your reaction to what you just saw?
Like we talked about before they released the rankings, I think, again, it became a debate between Miami and Alabama. I think they got the nod. I think Miami and Notre Dame, I think the head-to-head that Joey's talking about, one of the things I think is interesting based on what we've always been trained is, and I know the Tuesday night show creates some drama, and it creates a lot of heartache and headache for a lot of people to understand, but they really don't feel that their rankings are true until they get all of the data in. And with BYU losing a second time convincingly, even though Miami didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, that put BYU behind Miami. And now head-to-head matters because they're right next to each other. And even though they weren't on the field last week, it's hard to justify how can a team go by when neither team played. They would tell you in that room that we needed all the games played, all the games finished. And now we can see that Miami and Notre Dame were next to each other. And last week has nothing to do in their minds with this week and their final rankings. So it's not like the AP poll where every single week we follow and react to what happened. This is, to me, a mistake and misleading because of having these Tuesday night shows and having Miami so far away from Notre Dame. It's easy to say, guys, wow, they should have had Miami ahead of Notre Dame all along. Well, Miami had 2 tough losses in games they controlled against SMU and Louisville and gave them both away. There had to be some kind of reaction from the committee and a punishment from the committee, but Miami did what they needed to do. They kept climbing the ladder, getting close enough. They did their job on the field, and eventually, even though they didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, the committee felt that with BYU's second loss to Texas Tech in convincing fashion, they should go beneath Miami. And again, that's where the head-to-head mattered, and that's why they ended up flipping Miami and Notre Dame.
Kirk, I'm going to talk to Hunter Yurachek about this, but in their protocol for ranking teams, the head-to-head should have mattered. It doesn't mean it has to be exclusively the most important thing. It doesn't mean that they have to put Miami in front. All I'm saying is that I don't think we should create the idea that they couldn't really consider it until they were right beside each other. That's not really how their protocol is set up. I want to go to Nick here. Nick, you see how this has turned out. What's your reaction to this decision and how the playoff rankings look?
Right. I think the fact of the matter is all 3 of those teams should have gotten in and deserve the right to play, in the college football playoff. And for years now, we have kept tweaking the criteria of how we select teams to be in the playoff, whether it was a 2-team BCS, whether it's a 4-team playoff, and now 12-team playoff. But really, I think that you're going to have 2 teams in the playoff, no disrespect to the group of 5, that are nowhere near ranked as highly as some other teams that are much better than them. And I think that maybe something that we can learn from this, because, to me, this has got to be devastating for Notre Dame's team, not to get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, that we can learn something from this that will help us come up with a little better criteria of trying to make sure we get the best 12 teams in the playoff, and also address this whole idea of conference championship games and also the tiebreakers that get you in the conference championship game, and each conference has a significant impact, on what happens in this whole thing. So I don't think there was a good answer for all this. I'm happy for the teams that got in, and I think the committee did a really good job. I just think there was one team left out that I just don't think should have been left out some kind of way, but there was no way around it.
To Nick's point, just to illustrate that, Miami lost out on a tiebreaker, 5-way tie for second place in the ACC. Had they played in the ACC championship game, since they were the highest ranked team, they would have either won their way in, it would have created another at-large spot instead of having two teams from the group of five if they had won, or they would have lost and we wouldn't have had this controversy. Chris Fowler with us now. Chris, you've watched this for years. We've both covered this sport a long time. I think this is probably as controversial and difficult a decision as we've had in the entire playoff era.
I agree, Reese. This is a bracket that's going to be talked about forever, really. And not just because Notre Dame got excluded, but because of the framework that created the choices the committee had to make. And Nick talks about tweaks. There was a tweak after last season, what people didn't like about it. There's going to be something more than a tweak, I think, going forward, because all of a sudden, inclusivity, which most people in the sport think is a pretty good idea, even Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the deepest conference, thinks that you can't have group of five conferences play and have it mean absolutely nothing the entire season if there's not a possibility of getting in the CFP. So inclusivity sounds good until teams like Notre Dame and Texas and Vanderbilt get squeezed out. Then people have a serious problem with it. But this is one we're going to talk about for a long, long time. If you're Notre Dame, you're crushed. They were worried about this. I know they projected confidence. There was a lot of unease on the part of Marcus Freeman and others because they saw them drop last week, and now in consecutive weeks without playing, they have dropped in the rankings, and it ends up costing them despite a 10-game winning streak to finish the season. Having said that, I have no problem with Miami getting in based on a head-to-head, even though it was early in the season. They won that game at the line of scrimmage, held perhaps the best player in the sport, Jeremiah Love, who could win the Heisman, will certainly be there as a finalist in New York on Saturday, to 33 yards on 10 carries. So that was real. It was a late field goal that won it, but it still matters, and I think has to matter, or there's no incentive to schedule any kind of meaningful non-conference game. That's not the committee's job to protect that, or the committee's job to protect, with a sentimental eye, conference championship games, but those are also in danger, as we know, going forward.
We said on game day Saturday, Roy Kramer, who was the architect of the SEC championship game, just passed away over this past weekend. It's one of his greatest contributions to the sport, but so much has changed. Maybe that's about to change as well because of these ramifications. Sometimes there's more risk involved than reward. Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
Well, there's one thing I wanted to add, and Chris kind of made it a point about the tweaking in the future, is I think you have 10 teams that are getting evaluated on one set of criteria in this year's polling, and you have 2 teams that are getting in the playoffs evaluated on a whole different set of criteria based on 5 conference championships, the highest 5 conference championships getting in. And I think some kind of way we've got to bring that to balance, that we shouldn't be evaluating teams in the playoff with a different set of criteria, which is definitely the case the way it had to be done this year, the way things worked out. And conferences, in many respects, aren't even really conferences anymore. They're sort of scheduling conglomerates or associations as well. Kirk, as you've looked at this, had a few more minutes to think about it, what else are you thinking in terms of this decision, potentially having thresholds for conference champions to get automatic bids? What are your thoughts?
I think Chris and Coach bring up a couple really good points. JMU and Tulane getting in, I don't think anybody has a problem with a group of 5 teams getting in. I do think that it would be great if there was some kind of ceiling for them to have to, or some kind of barometer for them to have to get up to be able to qualify to get in. Because you do, at the end of the day, what they told us at the beginning of this is we want the best 12 teams in this. And I'm not saying JMU and Tulane won't prove to maybe be some of the 12 teams, but when you have Notre Dame and Vandy and Texas sitting at home, the years that they had and what they went through this year, it'd be great. If we had 16 teams, maybe that's the next answer. Let's get this thing up to 16 teams and see what we can do. But I think at the end of the day, conference championships, when you look at Alabama and you look at Notre Dame, having to play that extra game for Alabama, the way that game was looking, 21-0, which direction was this going to be an embarrassment for Alabama? I don't know. Maybe that would have been different, but playing in that extra game, looking at what Notre Dame had been through, I think they played 4 teams, Power 4 teams with 4-8 record or worse. As they looked at them side by side, I think playing in that bonus game, end of the day, did not hurt Bama, and they didn't want to set that precedent. I think Greg mentioned that earlier.
Kirk, that's interesting. We brought this up on game day Saturday that if you looked at the paper, the data, the metrics, you probably favored Alabama and Oklahoma for that matter. And maybe if you watched the tape, you leaned a little bit more to Notre Dame and Miami in terms of the way they've looked in recent days. Guys, thanks. We'll keep an eye on this. Of course, all these guys be heavily involved in the college football playoff once we start playing. But until we start playing, there's still some time to break all of this down. I think it's a really good concept to have thresholds for everybody to meet, whether that's ranking, whether that's computer metric or something, because you have teams that are going to be ranked near the bottom of the rankings that are displacing teams higher. Now, that may be okay a little bit. I don't know if it's top 20, if it's top 16, if it's top 12. But it seems like some type of threshold is probably what's going to happen in the future.
It does, because we tried to create an exception to include the group of five. And I think to your point earlier, Joy, we have teams on the sideline that absolutely could win a championship right now. No one in America, aside from JMU or Tulane, thinks that JMU or Tulane can win a championship this year. Like, that's the matter of fact. But they're in it because we had to include them based on the parameters that we were given. And I think that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. I don't know what those thresholds could be, but we're trying to include teams to make them a part of this when I think everyone knows that, they're good, but can they play with the big boys on a year in and year out? I don't know if that's the case, and I think that's what's going to rub Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt, because they could absolutely get hot and win it this season.
I agree with you, and I don't think I have as big a problem with JMU and Tulane getting in as a lot of people will. Do we believe they could win it? Absolutely not. I think they should be included. I don't know what the fix is to make people feel better, but in a season, and this is the first time we've seen this, the first time it's happened where two of them got in.
Right.
And so in this season, they got in. I'm happy for JMU. I'm happy for Tulane, and I'm okay with that. The big boys had their opportunities. You always look back through these seasons. We've all done it. We've all played. And you look back in your season and say, man, if we wouldn't have lost that game right there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
If we didn't get knocked off right here, we wouldn't be in this conversation. Handle your business, and we're not talking about JMU and Tulane getting in. They got in. That's how it is. We'll tweak it. I don't know what the fix is.
Well, the thing is, I do want to point out that I'm talking about best practice for the future. Under the current rules, I've got zero problem.
Absolutely.
No problem whatsoever. The question becomes, is this best practice? Our conference championship game best practice anymore?
I think one thing we can do to just immediately fix it is take a good deep dive into tiebreaker scenarios for all these conference championship games. Because guess what? If Miami right now is playing as a conference champion participant, and they win that game last night against Virginia, we don't have this conversation. Notre Dame's in too, and we don't have JMU, which to me I think would make some sense. That's what we got to fix first. We have bloated conferences. We have 18 teams in the Big Ten. It worked out this year in the Big Ten. The two best teams were playing in the conference championship game. Was that the case in the SEC? Maybe, maybe not. Was it the case in the ACC? Absolutely not. Was it the case in the Big 12 this year? Yes. Yeah. I think we need to look at how we're sending teams to the conference championship before we start to rip up the conference championship automatic berth. Because if we can just get the two best teams that were ranked from a metric standpoint, from a BCS standpoint, use the computers. I don't care. Use Sagarin ratings. I could care less. Take the two best teams in every conference, rank them accordingly, and those top two are the ones that are playing for the title as opposed to all these confusing tiebreaker scenarios.
Again, too, congratulations to Duke. They get the trophy.
Absolutely.
But a 5-loss team being in your conference championship game created a lot of this. Herbie, my friend Herbie was waving his finger over there. Herbie, you wanted something you wanted to add here right quick before we talk to Hunter Yurachek and look at a bracket here?
Yeah, I love hearing when you guys trying to spin us forward like what the answer is. And I think what all of us want is whether it's 12 or hopefully eventually it gets up to 16, is just whether it's computers and committee, a mixture of that, whatever the answer is. I just think at the end of the day, you rank them, whatever their conference affiliation is, throw that out, have 5 automatic qualifiers, and then from after that, just whatever it is, 1 to 16. If you get up into that ranking, you're in. If you're outside of it, you're out. There's no, what about this? Should we get this? It's just whatever the ranking is. That would be a beautiful future. Just to go back to what Coach Saban said, we all just want the best teams in. And however we get there subjectively, like I said, if it's a mixture of committee with computers, Sagarin ratings, whatever it is, just come up with a way to just rank them and not worry about, well, we've already got too many from this conference. We don't have enough from this conference. Whatever the rankings are, just spit it out, play it, and we all get what we really want, which the best team's in. If it's group of 5, great. If it's not, too bad. And let's just rank the teams and play the best teams.
All right, I mean, it's a fair point for the future, but, the good thing is at some point in this show, we're going to just put this to the side, get fired up about the games. We've still got some ground to cover in that regard, but right now, want to show you how the games are set up and where the bowl games will be.
We have times.
There you go. We got times, and you've got other opportunities as well. So I'm going to go up and walk up a little bit closer so my old eyes can see these things. You've got Oregon and James Madison. That will be on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time. The first game of the playoff will be Alabama and Oklahoma at 8 o'clock Eastern time, the 8-9 matchup. Then the noon game on ESPN ABC and College Game Day scheduled to be there as well will be Miami and Texas A&M. That will be on ESPN and ABC. And then the other game that will be on TNT, ESPN produced, your familiar announcers there, Tulane and Ole Miss in the rematch. That will be the afternoon game on Saturday, December 20th. So that's how it looks. You see the bowl game set up as well. Orange Bowl for Texas Tech, Rose for Indiana, Sugar for Georgia, and the Cotton for Ohio State. You see how the bracket goes, awaiting the winners, and there are some fascinating potential second-round matchups or quarterfinal matchups in the bowl games once we get there. We're joined by the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Hunter Yurachek. Hunter, thank you for being with us. I've said that I think this is the most difficult and controversial decision in the 12-year history of the playoff, whether it's 4 teams or 12 teams. The obvious question is, first, you move Miami ahead of Notre Dame. Neither team played. Every single ranking up to this point, you had it the other way. Why, without benefit of another game being played, did this change?
Maurice, first and foremost, the debate I hear you guys having in my ear in the studio, I'm sure it's been debated over the last 12 hours, and that was the debate we had in our committee room into the early morning hours, and then again as the sun was coming up. And the first move in that was we felt like the way BYU performed in their championship game, a second loss to Texas Tech in a similar fashion, was worthy of Miami moving ahead of them in the rankings. And once we moved Miami ahead of BYU, then we had that side-by-side comparison that everybody had been hungering for with Notre Dame and Miami. And you look at those two teams on paper, and they're almost equal in their schedule strength, their common opponents, the results against their common opponents. But the one metric we had to fall back on, again, was the head-to-head. I charged the committee members to go back and watch that game again, the Miami-Notre Dame game, because it was so far back. And we got some interesting debate from our coaches on what that game looked like as we watched it. And with that in mind, we gave Miami the nod over Notre Dame into that 10 spot.
But, Hunter, the way you guys go about ranking teams, you don't just have them rank their best 25 and everybody adds it up and do the math. I mean, the head-to-head, these teams had, almost by mathematical definition, had to be in the same group to be evaluated prior to this. I don't have a problem with the outcome. I'm asking about the process. So you're telling me that head-to-head never really came up until they were ranked side by side? That seems to be different from the process of ordering and ranking the teams that you guys go through.
Maurice, if you recall, Miami was a loser of 2 of 3 when they entered the poll at 18, and they were in close proximity to Louisville at the time, who I believe was below them in 21st or 22nd spot. And we didn't use the head-to-head metric to compare Miami and Louisville. Louisville, a team who had beat Miami, but not until they really got in close proximity, side by side with the move with BYU, were we able to evaluate just those two teams side by side. We always had someone between them, whether it was previously Alabama and BYU, and then just BYU in the last week.
Okay, but I still need a little further explanation on why this matters, because it is accurate to say that at some point in this process prior to this weekend, that at least in the group of teams, the 6, and when you go to 4 and carry them over and all of that Miami and Notre Dame have been in the same group for evaluation. Is that correct?
That is correct, Reese.
Okay, so why is it that they had to be ranked side by side with no one between them for the head-to-head to carry the day?
As I mentioned last week in last week's rankings, we thought Notre Dame was better than BYU and deserved to be ranked higher than BYU. We thought BYU deserved to be ranked higher than Miami, and that's the way that laid out. after the championship game in the Big 12 and the way BYU performed again against Texas Tech, we felt like Miami deserved to be ranked ahead of BYU. And then you had the direct head-to-head comparison of those teams, Miami and Notre Dame, sitting respectively at 10 and 11 in our poll.
Okay, Hunter, I appreciate your time. I know I've drilled down on this, but I have a couple more that I think are pretty important. What impact did the fact that there was potential that the ACC would not have a representative because Duke had 5 losses and they were the conference champion? What impact did that have on the discussion in the room when it came to Miami and Notre Dame, or just Miami's inclusion overall?
Reese, it had absolutely no impact. Our charge as a selection committee is to rank the top 25 teams, and then you peel out the 5 highest conference champions and the 7 at-large teams, and that's what we did to fill out that bracket. And Miami ended up being one of the 7th highest at-large teams, and that's why they're in the playoff.
Okay, as I said, I've got zero problem with
the ACC wasn't otherwise going to have a representative.
Yeah, I have no problem with the outcome. We're just talking process here. And so the same question about Alabama. I think Alabama pretty clearly had the best metrics, best resume of the 3 teams. However, they hadn't played well, and they did not play well in the conference championship game. So, and that was to Georgia's credit. Georgia played brilliantly. What was the selection committee's perspective on conference championship game performance, and what could happen to you punitively if you did have a day like Alabama had yesterday?
Yeah, we evaluated all of those conference championship games and felt like in the end, regardless of Alabama's performance yesterday, their body of work in those first 12 games where they had probably the best win, arguably this season, winning at number 3 Georgia, having to win against Vanderbilt, wins against Tennessee as well. Their strength of schedule was the highest in the top 11, and we felt like in spite of their performance yesterday in the conference championship, they deserve to stay in that 9 spot.
Okay, let's do one that's a little bit less controversial, but Greg McElroy brought it up, and it was a great point. Ole Miss, Texas A&M. A&M has some metrics that are a little bit better, similar records and all of that, and it would appear right now that Ole Miss got an easier path than A&M did, at least to start. What was the thought process behind how you wound up ranking Ole Miss a spot ahead of Texas A&M?
Yeah, we looked at that 5 through 8 corridor of teams that were there. All of them did not play. We did not see a reason to move any of those teams based on anything that happened in the conference championship games this weekend.
Hunter, we appreciate you. This has been a difficult thing. I appreciate you for standing in there and explaining the thought process of the committee. And one thing I'd like to point out, and I think you would agree with this, a lot of times when you come to these decisions on the final day, it appears on the outside that every single person in this room thought one way one week and everybody thought another way the next. Only takes a couple of guys, a couple of people to change their minds to change the outcome. Fair?
That's fair, Reese, and I just want to make sure that Coach Saban realizes I answered all of your questions this morning.
Yeah, he gave you a little bit of a, what does he like to call them, a rear end chewings, I think, or something like that. But Hunter, thanks a lot. I appreciate your very difficult job. Yeah. We appreciate you spending time with us as always. That is Hunter Yurachek. I've always said, Joey, you and I have talked about whether we'll be on the committee someday. It's a thankless task sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want in there now. I don't want to end race. That's too much.
Someday, you and me, our retirement job. This is the way the 12-team field will look. Hey, look, there's some controversy. There are things to answer for. Notre Dame has to be devastated for sure. BYU disappointed. I'm sure Vanderbilt and Texas are as well. But this is going to be exciting. It's going to be amazing. You've got some terrific teams in here. You've got some balanced teams and a lot of teams that can make runs. So let's look at the rest of the rankings and the next team out. Texas, who beat Vanderbilt head-to-head. They're 1 spot ahead of them.
And I like where Texas is from a playing standpoint. Arch Manning starting to play his best football. Just not good enough this year to get into the playoff.
USC at 16 proved to be Notre Dame's best win. Perhaps that had an impact as well. Arizona, what a season it had. The Wildcats moving up to 17. And Virginia, who missed a chance to go to the playoff, losing to Duke in the ACC title game. They go to 19. And there's your next playoff participant. So you have a team ranked 20th displacing a team from the playoff in Tulane.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised Tulane didn't jump in front of Virginia with the way Virginia played against Duke. But congratulations again to Tulane getting in the playoff.
And so the rest of the rankings round out this way. And James Madison is 24th, so you have two teams ranked in the 20s, pushing out teams in the field to make sure that you get the 5 highest ranked conference champions into the field.
And now you can look at it. North Texas, another example. Virginia dropped 2 spots. BYU just dropped a spot. Alabama stayed put. Ohio State swapped with Indiana. They didn't penalize teams that participated in conference championships and lost. That's a precedent that was set last year with SMU and will likely carry forward as long as we're in this current format.
So those are the final rankings. Remember, there aren't post-playoff rankings. The playoff takes care of itself now, so the committee's work is done. Coming up, on the college football playoff top 25, the head coach of the #1 team in the land.
That's a bad man right there.
Yes, he
that
is.
is a bad man.
Big Ten champion coach will join us coming up.
This is the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
This is the 12-team field. You see the 5-12 matchup, Oregon, James Madison. Winner goes to the Orange Bowl against the 4-seed Texas Tech. Working down, this is sort of like the Crimson group here. Alabama, Oklahoma, Indiana. Winner between the Tide and the Sooners. They go to the Rose Bowl. IU going to the Rose Bowl for the first time since 1968 when they took on O.J. Simpson and USC.
Wow.
Tulane, Ole Miss. Winner gets Georgia in the Sugar. Miami, A&M. Winner gets Ohio State in the Cotton. That's going to be great. Championship Saturday was spectacular as well. Tulane wins the American, taking down North Texas, forced 5 turnovers, and they are going into the field. They get a rematch from a regular season loss that they had against Ole Miss. John Summerall, the future Florida coach, will continue to guide the Green Wave through. In the SEC, Georgia avenged its regular season loss in dominant fashion against Alabama. Offense was efficient, worked well in short fields, and the defense was overwhelming throughout. Dogs repeat as SEC champions. First time they've done that since the Herschel Walker era. And then the one that sort of shook up the bracket quite a bit, Duke with 5 losses, beats Virginia in the ACC championship game. Manny Diaz's team champions of the ACC, but their overall body of work not enough to get them into the playoff. And the 1 versus 2 matchup in B1G last night, Indiana, 3rd Big Ten championship, first since '67 when they went to the Rose Bowl, and first outright since before the first baby in the baby boomer generation was born, which came the next year. The guy who has been the architect of the greatest turnaround, certainly in a 2-year period in the history of college football, Curt Cignetti of Indiana, is there joining us now. Curt, this morning you wake up, first time Indiana's #1. You keep breaking down all of these barriers, and now you are the top seed in the pursuit for the national championship. What's that been like for you?
Well, process driven, one day, one moment at a time, and then you get in at 5 a.m. and so you wake up and you don't have a lot of time to really think about it. But, you know, it's people, plan, process, really. You got to have the right people, commitment from the top, the right guys in the locker room, assistant coaches obviously do a great job. Got to have a plan and a process, and, you know, without a commitment from the president and the athletic director, Pam Witt and Scott Dolson, this kind of stuff's not possible.
Coach, I said earlier, I don't have the vocabulary to describe just how impressed I've been with what you've been able to do in these past 2 seasons at Indiana. I didn't realize how good your defense was until watching them play last night. Can you speak a little bit about not just the game plan, but the execution you guys put on in that game against Ohio State?
You know, truly, our defense has been top-notch since 2019. Philosophically, we got a way we want to play and attack. Bryant Haynes does a great job. We really played well up front last night, put pressure on the quarterback, stopped the run in the first half. Ohio State scratched out some runs in the second half. But, you know, it was a physical, heavyweight bout. And our defense stepped up, especially in the red area when Ohio State had some opportunities. And, it was a gut check and a great gutty win.
Coach Booger, I've been around a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of confident coaches. The one thing that sticks out to me is your confidence, your boldness, and your team plays that way. Just enlighten us. Where did that come from? How did that start?
It probably sort of evolved through the years of being the leader and having success. And as a leader, what's your vision, what's your expectation, what do you want to portray to the players, and what's your messaging? And I try to keep it simple but confident. And, if we prepare the right way and we have high standards and accountability, we put ourselves in the best position going on the field and play 1 to 150. We got to put it on the field, and the guys got to play the way you want them to play. Anything's possible.
Coach, I remember visiting with you leading up to the playoff game last year, and you had said this team had accomplished so much, but we still have so much more to accomplish. And it feels like you guys learned a lot from that process, that disappointment against Notre Dame. And I know that you guys have really solved all those problems this year. So how did the experience of last year better prepare you to finish the way you finished last night against Ohio State?
Well, if you use failure properly, you're going to come back stronger. And you're looking at Ohio State and then Notre Dame in the college football playoff. And I think that stuck in our guys' craw, the ones that returned from last year's team over the whole off season. And then we added some new pieces. And then, we cleared some barriers. We beat Illinois when they were 9th in the country, 63-10, go to Iowa, who's a highly, they're a good football team. And it's a hard place to win at the end, go up to Oregon, they're number 2 in the country, get that one done. That was obviously a big step we had to take. The win against Penn State, who was playing really hard under Terry Smith, and they had all the momentum, and win that game the way we did just added to the confidence. So it gave you a lot of confidence in that fourth quarter when it was a tight ball game. We've been here before, and they haven't. And we found a way.
That you did, and you might very well have the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Certainly he will be in the mix. Kurt, congratulations on everything. We look forward to seeing you in Pasadena with the Indiana Hoosiers, and you get the winner of Oklahoma and Alabama. Congratulations.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, Kurt Cignetti, when you Google him now, you get a lot more entries on the data. Spectacular. This guy bringing his team back to the playoff as well. Oregon will open at home against James Madison. Dan Lanning will join us when you come back.
You're watching the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
Coming up 5 o'clock Eastern Time, ESPN app, Georgetown and North Carolina. And you know what? There's a freshman for North Carolina. Maybe he'll make a shot right at the buzzer. If maybe someone from Georgetown won't throw it to
I'm a Georgetown fan. I don't want to hear that, Reese.
Fighting Hubert Davis.
That hurt me back then.
Hubert Davis, my guy, man.
You're a Georgetown
see what
fan?
Tar Heels is doing. You're
that's the biggest news of the day.
Yeah. All right, here's the college football playoff bracket presented by AT&T. The 5-12 matchup is James Madison against Oregon. The Ducks playing a home game. That game will be played on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. Head coach of the Ducks is Dan Lanning. Dan, second time in this 12-team playoff field. Last year you were the number 1 seed, had an extended period of time off before playing in the bowl game. How will you approach this one differently, playing a home game first?
Yeah, one, I think there is a huge benefit to getting an opportunity to play quick. We had this weekend off, an opportunity for our players to recover, get to watch some good football games. But I'm excited to see what Autzen is going to look like with our fans. That atmosphere, I think we all saw how special those moments can be last season as some of those opportunities played out. So we're really excited about the chance to pack Autzen and go play some games.
It'll be the coolest thing ever for you, Coach. It's unbelievable, those home playoff games. You have a remarkably young football team. I mean, it's just guys across the board are puppies, man, and yet they play like seasoned vets. How is it that you're able to instill that type of confidence into a roster that many were starting for the first time this year and several are underclassmen?
Well, it's certainly the way that the season started, but that time and that experience makes you a vet. And we have some guys that played really young this year. We always say if you're good enough, you're old enough. And we have some guys that stepped up in big moments that were ready for those moments. And now they have experience and they're not young anymore.
Coach Booger here. I marvel at every team's identity, and we talked about Georgia and Kirby and the physicality. We talk a lot about your quarterback, Dante Moore, but the physicality in which you guys play and run the football, especially from a defensive standpoint, to me, that's been outstanding. Just speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing our team's proven this year. That we can beat you different ways, right? And whether you have a battle against Iowa that finishes 18-16 and it's about the team that can run the ball, or you have a shootout with USC at times. Every phase of our team has really stepped up throughout the year, and our players embrace the physicality that's required to play football at the level you need to play it at. They're excited when they get to put pads on and go out to practice and work, and it's really paid off for us throughout this season.
Coach, because of your success, you have a couple coaches that will be moving on. How have you guys dealt with trying to focus through some of those distractions and having the biggest game of your season coming up in a couple weeks?
Yeah, there'll never be bigger distractions right now in college football than there are right now with, coaches getting opportunities, with the portal, with the signing day just wrapping up. So there's a lot of opportunities. And then obviously you're under a microscope now with less, 12 teams that are playing for this opportunity. But I think everyone understands, the excitement and the opportunity that exists right in front of us. And every one of these coaches, that's why you come here. And same for players. You come here to create opportunities. And they want to make sure they leave this on the right note. They did a lot of things to help us get in this position, and now it's about finishing it off.
The head coach across the field from you on that opening playoff game, Bob Chesney, will soon be a conference rival as the head coach at UCLA. What do you know about JMU and the Dukes and their program and the challenges that they'll present?
Well, I got a lot of respect for his path to get to where he's at. Obviously those guys have won everywhere they've been. He's worked his way up, which is really impressive. You got to watch a little bit of their team play throughout the season, and then obviously last night getting to see them in action. They obviously have a really good team. They play with each other. They really match that mantra of team mentality. So I know it'll be a fun challenge for us and the opportunity to play against a good team.
Dan, congratulations. Return trip to the playoff. Look forward to seeing the Ducks against James Madison. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
All right, there's Dan Lanning, his team a better than 3-touchdown favorite in the early going against James Madison. Early line, the All-State good hands play comes your way from the team that the Ducks will face. James Madison, strong performance. Boy, Troy gave them a fight for a while and then breaking free with the long runs. Wayne Knight running into the ninth. All the naysayers can be quiet now because JMU has won 11 in a row. So fitting that they would make the playoff after going on a winning streak like that. They're the first Sun Belt team ever to make it into the college football playoff. And we are pleased to be joined by the head coach at James Madison, Bob Chesney. Bob, I know it seemed as if things were going to go your way after Duke won the ACC championship game. What was it like waiting to see if that was in fact going to happen?
Yeah, we know our whole team was together and we sat in that room and you hope that is the case. You feel like you've gotten to this part where you deserve to be part of this conversation, and to be dead last for you guys to save us for the last possible team in there. There's a little bit of emotion. There was a little bit of anxiety coming with it, but it was great when that name finally popped up. Streamers were flying and our guys were are ready to go.
Coach, first of all, congrats on getting the UCLA job. That's number one. Also, congrats getting JMU to the postseason. Just explain to us a little bit, how will you juggle those two responsibilities that are each great in their own right?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on my way tomorrow out to LA. I'll have a chance to meet with the team and handle a press conference, and I'll be right back on the plane getting back here. By Wednesday, we'll have everything broken down, and we'll have our meetings in the evening, and then we're practicing Thursday, Friday, and then turning around in game week on Sunday. So excited to do all of those things in the immediate future.
Coach, for a lot of people that have not had a chance to watch JMU play, probably until the championship game when you guys just ran the ball like crazy with Knight, what does the country expect to see from you guys in this huge matchup against Oregon? What kind of team you bring to the table?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a confident bunch. I think you're going to see an inspired bunch, and I think you're going to see us continue to attack, every single opportunity that we have. Confident, inspired attack. That'll be our mantra as we go through this. That's been our mantra, up to this point in time. The preparation that these guys deal with every single week, the ability to block out the noise and to just focus on the process and the task at hand, are the things that I watch them do at an elite level. This is a team that's been through a lot, and this is a team that, believes in themselves, and at the same point in time is going to play a physical, tough, attacking brand of football.
Coach, I think it's been fascinating to watch not just your success, but also conversely Indiana's success. And to think how many JMU players ended up at Indiana in last year's run to a college football playoff, several of which are back, and yet they're competing at the highest level. So how has Curt Cignetti's success maybe inspired your guys to say, hey guys, the gap isn't that different. They took a lot of our guys. They're winning against the highest levels of football, and how can that help you against Oregon?
Yeah, I think that you're hitting a nail on the head. I know that a lot of our guys continue to be in great communication with those guys. We cheer for the Hoosiers every single week. Everybody's got their back, from here in Harrisonburg because they played on this field and were part of this program. And those are things that I think every week when we watch them, I think it makes it that much more realistic for our guys to understand that they can play, at that highest level.
Bob, you came up through the ranks and you're about to take another step up to the Big Ten. Now, we were talking earlier about the future and how you evaluate who gets into the playoff and whether teams from outside of the power conferences should have to be ranked at a certain level. Your strength of schedule was something that held you back for a while. You have a unique perspective now. It's pretty easy to say, well, make these guys earn it. Should they be there? From your perspective of working at a lot of different levels in football, what's the benefit to making sure that teams like James Madison playing in conferences like that in the so-called Group of Five or soon to be Group of Six still are playing for the championship and still are at least in the bracket?
Well, I think it is important. I think that a lot of these guys aspire to that, and maybe they didn't have the opportunity to initially play at that next level, but I think they could still accomplish some pretty special things. And I think when you watch our team and you watch the games we had over the history here when Coach Cignetti was here, beating, all the different Power Four teams, and then us last year, North Carolina, again this year in a toe-to-toe battle through the fourth quarter with a very good full-power Louisville team at that moment. And then we took care of the rest on our schedule that we possibly can. I think it would be really hard to look a group like us in the eye and say that you're not deserving of this after all the work and things they've done. We can't control our schedule. We can only control, what we do on game day, and I think we handled our business properly.
Game day is coming up in Eugene, Oregon. Great place to play. James Madison, Dukes and the Ducks. That'll be on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. Bob, congratulations on making the playoff. Congratulations on UCLA. Look forward to watching your team play.
I appreciate it. Go Dukes.
There is Bob Chesney, head coach at James Madison. He's on his way to UCLA. We've got a theme going here. Tulane head coach John Sumrall, who is headed to Florida, but first he has business to attend to in the college football playoff. He will join us when you come back. 24th annual Women's Jimmy V Classic, the Hawkeye State rivalry. Number 10 Iowa State, number 12 Iowa. That's Wednesday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central on ESPN and the app from Hilton Coliseum, which is a great place to see a basketball game. To donate to the V Foundation for Cancer Research, go to v.org. Our Capital One rewarding performance. Tulane Green Wave. I mean, they played as good as they looked. You like those unis?
Love it, baby.
Yeah, those were sweet. It was 34-21 game. North Texas got back in it, but Tulane jumped all over the mean green and then went on to win the American. And for their efforts, they not only got a conference championship in the American, but John Sumrall and the Green Wave will go back to Ole Miss to take on the Rebels for the second time this year. And the head coach Tulane, soon to be head coach at Florida, I guess already is, but will be full-time head coach at Florida soon. John Sumrall is with us. John, but let's focus on Tulane right now and the game against Ole Miss. What do you anticipate being different about playing the Rebels the second time as opposed to the regular season matchup?
Well, I anticipate we need to play better. We're going to get our butts kicked. We didn't play very good the first time. Ole Miss, a really talented football team. It was Trinidad Chambliss' second start when we played them. And I didn't see Tulane play that week, to be quite honest with you. It was our worst performance of the year. Some of that had to do with Ole Miss, but a lot of it was self-inflicted. We have to play a lot better football this go around.
Coach, in your title game, you guys were able to create 5 turnovers in that game and jumped all over North Texas. What can you take from that? Is it a confidence, whatever it is, to carry into this game? If your defense plays that way, you got a chance to beat anybody.
Well, takeaways are huge. You know, it's one of our keys to victory every week. It's actually our first one every week. And we when we've been on the right side of the turnover margin all year, it's boded well for our success. When we've been on the wrong side of it, it's really cost us. Going +5 last week was a huge part of our success in the game against North Texas. They're a really good football team. We were able to create those takeaways in critical moments. One of them was a touchdown our defense had on a fumble recovery. So, I'm sorry, interception, not a fumble recovery, interception. But we've got to make sure we win the turnover margin this game coming up.
Coach Booger here. Congrats on the Florida job, first and foremost. Having played Ole Miss, I'm sure you went back already and watched that film and dissected that film, not giving away the game plan, but what's a couple of things you say, hey, guys, we have to do X when we play this team again?
Yeah, so I've got my iPad loaded up, getting ready to hop on a plane to go to Gainesville for a couple days. I'm going to watch that game and a couple other games on the way down, probably. You know, the biggest thing I felt like on the perimeter, they out-physicaled us and kind of manhandled us at times. And that's on both sides of the ball. I thought their DBs were really suffocating in coverage against us. We had a couple of drops that were not characteristic of who we typically are. And then on the perimeter of their offense, we didn't win the 50-50 opportunities in our defensive backfield at times. So we've got to make sure we handle those situations on the perimeter a lot better.
Coach, Greg McElroy, man, great to see you. Congrats on everything that you guys have accomplished. Excited to see what you'll do here in the postseason. When I look at the freedom that your team will likely play with, and you played free, I felt like, against North Texas. Guys, we've got nothing to lose. Let's just go shoot our shot and see what happens. That freedom, I feel like if it can carry over into the Ole Miss game, you can have some success with where you guys have grown offensively and defensively. So how do you anticipate kind of harnessing that freedom as if, hey, we got nothing to lose. Let's go tackle Goliath if we're David.
Yeah, we're playing with house money a little bit, right? You know, and so for me, as much as anything, you know, our 2 setbacks in the year, one of them was obviously the Ole Miss game in Game 4, and then UTSA on October the 30th. Both of those setbacks, I think our guys responded the right way, you know, to maybe what wasn't good performances. And so for us, you know, you only get one shot at this. Have no regrets. Let it all hang out. And enjoy the opportunity, take it all in, give it everything you got, and play together, play as a team, have fun going through this experience. And you know, there's nothing that we're going to do other than give our absolute best effort to this opportunity. And I look forward to watching our guys go compete, man.
John, we know that it's going to be a difficult and time-consuming couple of weeks leading into this, but look forward to seeing your game with Tulane against Ole Miss before heading off to be the Florida head coach and perhaps maybe even going on a longer run with Tulane. Congratulations. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know if you guys caught, but I got my Angry Wave and my Ole Miss helmets right here behind me. One's on top, one's on bottom.
Would those be the lids you wear, the Angry Wave? Those are the ones we're going with in the playoff, you think?
Those are pretty clean. Those are pretty clean right there, bro.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a good uni game.
Yeah,
that's
really
a low-key good uni game,
no
Tulane
question.
and Ole Miss. John, best of luck, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank y'all. Roll Wave.
You ever think that every now and then maybe the coaches have to figure out, you know, remember when to say roll wave?
Yes.
And then, you know, have to say go Gators.
Yeah. And then right after, no roll wave.
Which one? Who am I talking to? Which team was I talking about? You know, that's an interesting thing because he's on his way out. Pete Golding, full-time job, his first game as a head coach at Ole Miss. We have a look at the college football playoff bracket presented by AT&T, the 12-team field. And, of course, nobody covers this better than Heather Dinich, who's been in Grapevine, Texas. She keeps her finger on the pulse of the committee throughout. But even Heather, no matter how much she knows, Heather, you can be surprised at an outcome from there. How surprised were you with the committee's final rankings? Here, let's have a look at it. I think we've got it. Let's see it.
Okay.
Oh, are you hoping for something, Heather?
I'm hoping to be right, Reese.
Heather, I thought for a second Heather was like, I'm busy. I missed church this morning. I'm caught in the middle of prayer. But instead, you were just praying to be right. Is that right?
That's what I try to do. That's my job. I try to be as right as possible. But the reason I was so surprised is not because Alabama's in. I projected Alabama to be in. I was shocked that they didn't drop after the way they played. They played horribly. And what happened was they did what I would have projected with an Alabama win. That's the stunning thing. Because if Alabama would have won, Miami jumps ahead of BYU, then you have exactly what we saw today, where you have Miami and Notre Dame right next to each other. But with Alabama losing, I thought for sure they would have thrown a monkey wrench in that whole Alabama-Miami-Notre Dame discussion.
So what do you make of the notion and the concept? Because you're very familiar with the committee's procedures in terms of ranking and ordering the teams. What do you make of this whole concept that they have to be beside each other before head-to-head carries today? That doesn't, I'm still not quite buying that. It's either appropriate or well executed, one of the two. You have to look at it. If you decide that Notre Dame's better, I'm fine with that. And if you decide Miami's head-to-head carries today, I'm okay with that. But saying we can't do it until they're side by side doesn't seem to fall into the established procedures that they have for ordering and ranking these teams.
Well, not only that they're side by side, Reese, but that they're side by side suddenly on a week when neither of them played, right? Which also makes it more difficult to explain and difficult for fans to understand unless you're a Miami fan, of course. But it does say in the committee protocol that you use that when they're comparable teams. So if you're going by the protocol, it makes sense that they refer to that because we've seen the charts of how similar Miami and Notre Dame are this whole past 6 weeks or whatever it's been. So that does make sense, but I agree with you. And I asked Hunter Yurachek as we were walking after he was on the show, why? Because we had heard him say Notre Dame is the better football team this whole time. Did this change last night? And his answer was exactly what we're talking about, because of the proximity. That was the answer.
It's not a satisfactory answer. I don't think necessarily. It needs to be evaluated throughout. But from covering this, and it's not the selection committee's job to protect conference championship games or think about the ramifications, nor is it their job to establish what the bracket's going to look like in the future. Their job is to rank the teams. But the result of this ranking, Notre Dame being left out, Alabama not moving after this, what impact does your reporting sense tell you is that going to have on the future of the way the playoff's going to look?
Well, two things. One, I will tell you that Hunter told me that there was a belief in the room that Alabama playing in the conference championship game should not be something that they get penalized for. So there's that thought. But to answer your question, I would also say everyone needs to brace for the inevitable, which is this thing is going to expand. The question is when and how many. Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, Big Ten commissioner Tony Petitti, they've got to come to an agreement. And so far, they haven't been on the same page. The Big Ten is still pushing automatic qualifiers, considering a 24-team playoff, and there are still others who want the 16-team field. So we'll see where that goes. But to your point, everything that unfolded here today is further looking for evidence, right, that this needs to get bigger.
I don't, the thing is, I'm not so sure, Heather, that it just needs to get bigger, though it probably will. If we wind up with more home playoff games, I would be happy with it expanding and getting bigger. I think what you're looking at, this is going to be the most meaningful rankings yet. I think it's going to impact who is selected to play in conference championship games. It might impact whether conference championship games even continue in their current form, at least in some of the big conferences. And also there's the whole Notre Dame question, the scheduling question. There are all of these things that are going to be impacted as a result of these rankings, in which there were no definitive answers in my judgment. All of these teams were so closely bunched. They all had positives. They all had negatives. It was an impossible thing to say, yep, okay, we arrived at the answer key.
Well, and to your point, I asked Hunter what was the most difficult part of this whole thing, and he said knowing that one of those three teams was going to be left out. But you're absolutely right. You nailed it. This is an imperfect system. There is not a right answer unless you ask someone who says, no, I'm a Miami fan, and I know what the right answer is.
Yeah.
It's college football is unequal, right? You've got over 130 teams, and you can talk about tiebreakers. You could talk about conference expansion. You can talk about conference championship games. All of these things make it really difficult for 12 people in a matter of hours to figure out the best team in the country.
And the good news for us, it gives us content throughout the offseason, no matter what happens. Heather, great job as always. Heather Dinich reporting the college football playoff selection committee. There's going to be a lot of fallout from this for sure, but we also have great games. So, that's the thing. The product is so good, you really can't screw it up.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what happens, it really doesn't screw up the product.
Yeah, the product is great. I'm a big believer in why. Like, why did Alabama get in? It's obviously that the committee liked that four-week stretch where they beat the 4 ranked teams in a row. They liked the strength of schedule, strength of record, and those things overrode what I thought was probably one of the worst losses that we saw all season. And so understanding why they got in, understanding why they didn't even move when losing by 21 to Georgia.
And that's the question, and I feel bad for the process reason, and it has nothing to do with which teams get in or don't get in, because I don't care. But I want to understand the process. Why was Alabama handled different than BYU? If we knew at the end we're trying to get these teams together, Alabama lost, and you mentioned in the SEC championship game, they didn't look good. BYU lost in the Big 12 championship, and they didn't look good. BYU moved, Alabama did not move. Why is that process different? As we look at this, I just want the process to make sense, and it doesn't matter to me which teams get in and which teams get out.
It changes year to year. That's the difficult thing, is that every year the criteria is just a little bit different because the teams are different. What I've learned this year, more than any other year I've been doing this is now year 12. Me and Booger sat on the desk a long time ago together, back when I was really young and you were really handsome. Now I look at where we're going, though. Y'all, the margins are insanely thin. Think about this for a moment. And I don't want to draw bad memories. I think there's in all likelihood, if Notre Dame can handle an extra point snap, we might be having a different conversation in the second game of the year. If you look at, and that's a completely different animal. So the margins now are thinner than they've ever been. You have to be at your best. And guess what? You don't get the week one throwaway anymore. Because Notre Dame's on the outside looking in right now because of a week one result. And most coaches don't even know what they have week one, especially with the transfer portal. So there is no preseason. There is no buildup. You have to be at your best every single time. And if you aren't, you're probably going to lose. And it could potentially be the loss that keeps you out of the postseason. Because frankly, if Notre Dame's in this field, I think they're a top 2, maybe top 3 favorite to win the whole dang thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I will give you the answer as to why Alabama's in. You don't have to agree with it. It was in the offseason. Enhanced metrics. The things you said, it's not close. I mean, if you look at the paper, it's not close between Alabama and Notre Dame and Miami in terms of strength of record, strength of schedule, all of those things. So it's strength of record is a little bit closer. Strength of schedule is not close. You can scan this flow code right here and pick who you think will win the national championship. AT&T keeping us connected with all the fans at home. Scan that code. Tell us who's going to win it all. Like Greg said, if Notre Dame were in it, maybe you could go Notre Dame. Our results will be revealed a little bit later on in the show. And I would imagine we're going to have these guys filling out the bracket, too. I don't think BV's going to fill out a bracket. But Boomer's going to play at home. Venables got the Oklahoma into the field. They'll see a familiar foe.
You're watching the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
Had to make it to the top just to see how hard they rock.
Monday Night Football, Eagles and Chargers. Both teams are 8-4. ABC, ESPN, the app. Eagles trying to snap that 2-game slide. And Funday Football on ESPN2 as well. Here is the Protection Spotlight brought to you by Prudential Oklahoma 21-5. The Palace on the Prairie under Brent Venables, outscoring their opponents by nearly 18 points per game. They took Alabama apart last year in Norman and knocked them out of the playoff, and they'll get the Crimson Tide again after beating them in Tuscaloosa earlier this year. Brent Venables, head coach of the Sooners, with us right now. I just noticed, too, with the Eagles playing, it's sort of like the Jalen Hurts game, right? You'll probably say roll Sooners at some point leading up to it. Brent, what's it like for you to play a team in the playoff you're very familiar with, and you've played them fairly recently?
Yeah, I mean, there's familiarity that they have with us and we have with them. I think you feel like, you have a better understanding of how you match up and what your best matchups are, and then maybe what some matchups are that you got to find a way to get better at those. But there's a comfort knowing who you're playing, but also the same challenge. The quality of the roster, the talent, the coaching, all of those things that you're facing as well.
Coach Booger here. First of all, watching your defensive line has me wanting to come out of retirement. I mean, those guys get after the quarterback. That's number one. Number two, how do you get your offense with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle to kind of play to the level they were playing at earlier in this season, which you're going to need in this playoff game?
Yeah, I mean, again, I've said this a lot. I think the strength of our football team is the team. When you put them all together, I think we're number one in the country in special teams efficiency and average starting field position. That matters because I think there's from a complementary standpoint, we've done a really good job of being an efficient football team when it's all said and done. So for us, man, we need to be a better version of that, take the next 2 weeks. And certainly we had a week of a couple of days where we were able to do some self-scouting and get our players back on the field a little bit. But how good can we be? How much improvement can we make over a 2.5 week period of time? Being a little bit better in a whole bunch of areas adds up to a lot. And we need to offensively, get back to the rhythm and the cadence that we did earlier in the year, make the layups that are there. We've become a more physical football team. We've got 3 guys up front that are all freshmen that have improved incrementally as we've gone throughout the year, and been one of the better efficient running football teams from a yards per rush standpoint in the SEC the back half of the season. That's a good, indicator of the improvement that we've made. And then we've got to get back to creating, the explosive plays. And John is one of the best playmakers in college football, when he's at his best. So try to free him up. But at the end of the day, man, be the most physical team, win the turnover battle, be great like we've been in special teams, and create big plays and field position and the momentum that we've created as a football team going into, this game here, a week from Friday night.
Brent, congratulations on everything. It was a spectacular Friday night atmosphere at Notre Dame last year. I'm sure it will be in Norman when we're there as well. Congratulations. Wish you the best in the playoff.
Yeah, appreciate it. Sooner Nation going to be ready, Reese. You don't have to worry about them.
Can't wait to get there. Looking forward to it. That's Brent Venables, head coach of the Sooners, as they make their way into the playoff, getting a home game. And across the field from them will be Alabama, led by Kalen DeBoer. Kalen, there was a lot of talk after the SEC championship game that perhaps Alabama would be on the outside looking in. How were those last few minutes waiting to see the bracket to see if your team would be in the field?
Yeah, when it's not in your control, there's always anxious times. And so, just really still felt good about what we accomplished all season long. And you just trust that resume, I guess, if you want to call it that, is what's going to, provide the information to help make this type of decision.
Coach, when you look at your last time playing, you guys dominated the game, except in that key area, the turnover area, which is what hurt you guys the last time you played Oklahoma. What do you do now? How do you fix that? What do you take away from that game moving into this next matchup?
Yeah, no, and a credit to Oklahoma. Coach Venables done an awesome job. That's their strength, right? They win the field position. They win the turnover margin. That's a lot of what we've done most games. And, the 2 games that we faulted in here late in the season, including last night, that was the case. Field position was given up, shorter fields. And in that game, it was a combination of things. It was turnovers in particular. The one that went for a touchdown was a killer at the time. Our guys kept fighting and kept clawing back. And then a couple of special teams plays that, in one in particular, a kick punt return at the beginning of the game that really set them up as well. But every game is its own game. You learn from it. We understand them. They understand us. This third time meeting in just a little over a year. And so, it's going to be a physical game. It's going to be hard fought. I know it's going to be an awesome environment, especially on a Friday night to kick off the playoffs.
Yeah, what a way to start it, Coach. Congratulations. It's Greg McElroy. Looking at the team and the roster, it's a mash unit right now. I mean, with LT Overton, you look at Jam Miller, Josh Cuevas, guys that have been really banged up. So I would imagine it's paramount to get as healthy as humanly possible for a game that'll kick off in about 12 days. How will you be able to handle that? How will you get those guys back on track so that hopefully they can be available there in the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, really for the last 5, maybe even more, have been very physical games for us, last night included. That was an extremely physical game. And the last time we played Oklahoma, LSU, Auburn, were all very physical games against very good teams. And so, yeah, for us, we got a couple days here. This will be the biggest gap that we've had, with technically a bye week to prepare. We'll got finals and stuff going on, so the first couple of days this week, certainly let the guys take care of business there, and then get back to work. These guys are going to be chomping at the bit. They're going to be able to do everything they can. This time frame right now will allow us to certainly get healthier, though.
Kalen, congratulations on making it into the field and on a strong season. We look forward to seeing you in Norman to open the playoff on that Friday night against the Sooners.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, Kalen DeBoer, head coach of the Crimson Tide. Alabama getting into the field. The reigning national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the 2 seed after losing a hard-fought game to Indiana. Ryan Day will join us as we continue to break down the playoff.
Together at the mountaintop, champions of college football.
How do you go from where you are to where you want to be? And I think you have to have an enthusiasm for life. You have to have a dream, a goal, and you have to be willing to work for it.
It is V Week at ESPN. We partner with the V Foundation to highlight the urgent need for cancer research. Game-changing research has helped save lives. If you're able and willing, you can give now at v.org/donate. 100% of your donation goes directly to cancer research. We encourage you to donate if you are able and inclined. Let's take a look at today's proven performance, brought to you by Goodyear. And the proven performance of the Hairy Dogs, who hunkered down back-to-back SEC championships. Gunnar Stockton, fourth Georgia quarterback to win the SEC championship game MVP. Gunnar came off the bench last year and saved the day for the Dogs. He was the man throughout against Alabama as Georgia rolled to a 28-7 victory, and Georgia is the 3rd seed in the college football playoff. Head coach of the Dogs, Kirby Smart, joins us now. Kirby, we've talked a little bit in the past about the difference between having a home game and having a lot of time before you open in the playoffs. Once again, you guys have the time. How will you approach the time in terms of get ready for the winner of the Tulane-Ole Miss game?
Well, it's happened so quick, Reese. I don't know that we've thought all the way through that. The first thing we're going to do is try to heal, recover, final exams, and then take a deep dive at looking in ourselves and maybe see some areas we can grow in. But, it's a long thought process about that. A lot of debate last year. I think none of the teams with buys won, if that's correct. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of thought there, a lot of texting going on between coaches who did it last year, trying to find maybe a better way.
Coach, it seems like you guys are playing your best football with maybe watching the game against Alabama yesterday. Looked like the best Georgia team I've seen. Do you agree that you guys are sort of on a roll right now? Looked like the scariest team in the country to me.
Well, we played well defensively, and we had moments of offense that we sputtered some against a good Alabama defense, but then we picked it up some. So I think we've played complementary football all year. We do have a lot of players getting better. We've challenged our guys to do that, but the problem now is continuing to do that, and that long layoff can get you.
Coach, when I watch your defense, it's Greg McElroy, by the way, man. When I watch your defense, the progress that's been made is remarkable. I mean, guys are now flying around. They're creating a lot of disruption. The pass rush is night and day improved from where they were earlier in the year. So what do you attribute that to, the progress that's been made on the defensive side of the ball under Coach Schumann?
Yeah, Schumann's done an incredible job. The staff is the first credit, the players and the buy-in of the young players. And then, Greg, from being in Alabama, there's this thing called cumulative effect that as you do things on your defense throughout the year, you add tweaks and you tweak things, you get better at them because we get tons of reps. So our volume really hasn't increased, but our reps of that volume has increased. So we got a lot of reps in a lot of areas, and I think we're starting to pick up things a little faster.
Kirby Booger, in a day and age where everybody's going to spread and they're trying to get speed and space, I marvel at how your program remains one of the most physical, if not the most physical in the country. That's your identity, similar to when you and I played against each other 27 years ago when you were at safety. It's funny, though, because you wouldn't hit anybody back then, but even though you want your teams to hit now. So how do you get your program to be so physical all the time, day in and day out?
It's a culture. It's a day of life. It's a way of life. We believe it helps us win in the fourth quarter. When you watch the National Football League and you pattern your game because you want players to come to your program that want to play in a style of offense and defense that they can play on the next level, but a lot of them want to play in those style of offenses. And when it comes down to the playoffs, you have to be able to stop the run and run the ball to win games. There's a lot of style points out there. There's a lot of things that guys can do offensively and put up numbers. But at the end of the game, if you have to run the ball and you have to stop the run, especially when you get into cold weather or tough elements, those are things that matter the most. And we didn't do those well last year, guys. And that was what we were hang our hat on this year was, can we stop the run and can we run the ball? And we were going to do that come hell or high water.
You've done it brilliantly, SEC champions again, and I know you won't care about this, but once you get to New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl, it's either Georgia against the future Florida coach or Georgia against Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. So we got some storylines too, Kirby, so we'll look forward to it. Congratulations. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right, Kirby Smart, head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, the reigning national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And you see under Ryan Day where they've started off in the college football playoff. They won the championship last year, coming off a disappointing loss, ironically by the same score as last night's loss in the Big Ten championship game. Ryan Day has a great team, as a team that's been ranked #1 for the majority of the year. He joins us right now. Ryan, thanks for being with us, and congratulations on a terrific season. I know last night was a disappointment. You guys were able to use the loss last year, albeit very different circumstances, understood, but it really brought out your very best football of the season. What do you think you can take from coming up a little short last night that will propel you into the playoff?
Well, yeah, just met with the team here, after the selection, and talked to them about how this is important. When you come after a loss like this, you got to identify what the issues are and get them fixed. And we're disappointed, but we're not going to sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. We got to get back to work. We're excited about going down to the Cotton Bowl and seeing what happens with this game. But for us, listen, the issues are always there. And, we have to make sure that, we're addressing those issues. But we've done a lot of good things this year. And, we feel like, when we're on our game, we can play with anybody in the country. But it starts with stopping a run and running the football, and then taking care of the football and playing well situationally, which didn't happen consistently last night.
Coach, what is that process like for you guys now? You mentioned you had a meeting today, not knowing who you're playing in the next game. What do you do in the next week or so to get ready, to prepare, to sort of learn from what happened last night?
Well, I think we got to come up for air a little bit, just physically, mentally, and emotionally for the guys who have played a lot of reps. The guys who haven't, we'll get them some work, but then also keep our edge. I think that's important. Just looking back on last year, sort of how we were in the playoffs and maybe some of the other teams that were in the playoffs, like keeping our edge is going to be critical here. So practice will be very, very important in our preparation over the next month.
Coach, it's Greg McElroy. Been amazed at how you guys have brought Julian Sand along. I mean, from what you asked him to do early and just how he has progressed. And man, I mean, it's like textbook and quarterback development. You guys and your staff have done a remarkable job. Got hit a couple times last night. Got a little uncomfortable a couple times last night. How do you kind of get him now feeling a little more comfortable going forward so we can avoid those hits and hopefully continue to play at the level he played at in the first 12 games of the year?
Yeah, no, I thought he competed last night. I know it didn't go exactly the way he wanted it to, or any of us wanted to, but I thought he competed. He had the first turnover after that, took care of the ball, even though we had some protection breakdowns, and still threw some really good football. So he'll take this experience, learn from it, And then hopefully, he can take this, moving forward in the playoffs as an opportunity to learn and grow. And I think we all will. And so everybody involved in the passing game. It's not just the quarterback. But I did think he competed. He had a good look in his eye. He still had composure like he has in every game. And so now, his focus will be moving forward.
As you, Ryan, as you look ahead to this now, Brian Hartline's going to move on to be a head coach. Anything that you'll do in terms of organizational structure, preparation, heading into the playoff from an offensive standpoint that might be a little different, given that he's going to have other responsibilities as well?
Well, I think when you have this much time to prepare, it's a little bit different. You're a little bit in a different routine, more time to get organized. So, he's still going to call plays, but we'll be involved with everybody on the offensive side, looking to make sure that we put the best plays in the game plan and then be able to call them efficiently and put our guys in a situation to be successful. So we had a chance to look at everything that we've done this year, figure out what we've done well, what we haven't done well, what we need to improve on, and what we need to do game plan-wise, schematically against our opponent. So I guess the only difference is really, we're going to have a little bit more time, but it's still going to come down to fundamentals. And that's what we'll make sure we're working on over here over the next month.
All right, New Year's Eve, 7:30 Eastern Time. The quest for the repeat for the Buckeyes starts against the winner of the Miami-Texas A&M game. Ryan, thanks for being with us. Wish you the best.
All right, guys, thanks.
All right, Ryan Day, head coach of the Buckeyes. He's not the only one. There are a lot of guys who are going to have to deal with divided allegiances. We talked to John Summerall earlier, about to get on a plane for Gainesville. I mean, that's what has to be done because of the calendar. But you've got half the teams in the field that are dealing with this on some level.
Right. It just comes down to time management. It's 24 hours in a day. They got to figure out, how am I going to devote time to Tulane? How am I going to devote time to Florida, or vice versa, wherever coach you are? And I think as long as these coaches are structured in their time management, it's doable.
Yeah, and the key is to get the kids to believe that the coach's body is in. That locker room has to believe that you're with us in this game as we move forward.
Yeah, these guys are pros. They can compartmentalize this. We've seen it done with remarkable success in the past with Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning and their guys as coordinators when they're taking other jobs, go on and win the Natty. It shouldn't make a huge difference, but I do think, especially here in the early going, it can be a bit of a distraction.
I do think that calendar guys do it, but this is a time of year when everybody ought to be the most unified, and instead you're the most fragmented. But we shall move on. Are you leaving?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have a couple
now
more
we're fragmented.
Yeah, we're going to.
We're fragmented.
Exactly.
We're hopping on a plane.
What you leaving?
As always, though, guys, it's been a pleasure.
I don't know if it has.
You know better than you try.
I know it. Yeah. I was trying my best.
I know it's best. See, earlier today, you said Greg was trying to bring you down. And now, see, right there, you just fell right into
he brought me down.
No, don't
now you're blaming
me.
me. All right, Book, have a great show
Absolutely.
tonight. Booker McFarland will go off to cover the NFL. Of course, NFL's rolling on. I think our Jaguars are still leading, so that's good news. Best of the watch party coming up. Some celebrations, team getting into the college football playoff. It was the Dukes getting into the field. Let's take a look at our college football playoff schedule brought to you by Verbo. It starts on December 19th, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. That will be the Alabama-Oklahoma game from Norman, and we have the other first-round games. Then the quarterfinals start on New Year's Eve with the Cotton Bowl. That is going to be fantastic. The winner of the Miami-Texas A&M game against Ohio State. And on Thursday, January 8th, you've got the Fiesta Bowl, and then you have the Peach Bowl on January 9th. That all feeds into the national championship game on Monday, January 19th from Miami Gardens, Florida, and Hard Rock Stadium. All right, Booker McFarland has exited the premises. You look at this bracket right now, it seems fairly balanced, but I think the easiest path, fittingly so, probably goes to the number one seed, at least to get to the semifinals when everybody should be good then.
I think I agree with you, Reese, but also as we get into the playoffs, and we saw it last season when you had Ryan Day on, talked about Ohio State losing that last game, getting the playoffs, getting hot. It all comes down to who can get hot. I mentioned Georgia's playing their best football of the season. They look really good. Indiana looks really good. I would say the top half of that bracket, it's going to get tough down there at the bottom when the side that has Georgia and Ohio State, A&M, Miami, that's going to be a lot of fun.
But you know what, Greg, to this point, too, Georgia's path's not bad either. You have some A new situation for Ole Miss coaching. You've got Summerall, who's a terrific coach, but he's already a 2.5 touchdown underdog, and he's a little bit divided in terms of time with Florida too. So a lot of things falling Georgia's way too.
Yeah, and I think that's been the beauty of how they've changed the seeding process this year. Last year, remember, the top 4 byes went to the top 4 conference champions, and we're already reaping the rewards. If you look at just the matchups in the first round, should be more competitive with the exception of 2, unless they can pull the stunner, which would be miraculous. But even the way things set up, the 5 seed is no longer the best possible spot to be in. That's where Penn State was last year, and they found their way to the semifinals.
I think they were 6 more than
as a result.
Penn State was 6.
Maybe 6, 5,
either way.
Thereabouts.
But they had a good path.
Really good path. But I think, look, if you're the top seed, you should have the most manageable path. That was not the case last year when Oregon in the second round had to take on Ohio State, who is arguably the most talented team. So I think Indiana, they did benefit greatly from that win last night, and they should.
Yeah, I think they should also. And I think they proved to be the best team in the country. And that was the game we were sort of waiting on to see who that number 1 seed was going to be. And now they get a chance to go to the Rose Bowl. But again, it really just depends on who can get hot, who can stay healthy. And these next couple of weeks, who can stay sharp. And Coach Dave mentioned that, they get some time off, but they also have to stay sharp. Guys need rested. It's interesting to see how these teams deal with that week off, that time off.
Who would be the team playing in the first round that you would say is most likely to get to the semifinals, maybe even to the national championship game?
Let's see. I'm gonna go with Miami. As crazy as that sounds, I think Miami is a team that has a chip on its shoulder now, just because of the process. I think they look like a pretty good team.
What's funny is I think their opponent, A&M, has a really good chance as well. I mean, both those teams, a lot of firepower, a lot of weaponry, really good along both lines of scrimmage. You got to win from the inside out in the college football playoff. Great O-line, great D-line. Both those teams check both boxes.
Yeah, I don't mean to cast aspersions. Good for Tulane that they're in. You made a great point early. That 6-7 decision was huge.
Massive
difference in playing a Miami team. At one point, many of us had ranked number 1 in the country. Now chip on the shoulder, last at large team into the field. Big deal. That'll be a tough one for Gig'em to start the day on Saturday at noon on ABC. Joey McGuire, he doesn't have to worry about the first round. The only bad thing in this whole playoff is that we don't have a home game in Lubbock. I mean, that trip to Lubbock earlier this year sold me big time. Joey joins us when you come back.
This is the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
Attend the 2026 College Football Playoff National Championship with Playoff Premium, the official premium hospitality program. Suite and ticket packages include premier seating, all-inclusive hospitality, exclusive event access, and more. Visit playoffpremium.com to book today. Look at what Texas Tech has done this season. Highest scoring margin in the country, just a little bit better than Indiana, outscoring their opponents by 31.5 points per game. 12-win season, most in school history. First outright conference championship since they were in the border conference in the mid-50s. Joey McGuire has done a spectacular job in leading the Red Raiders not only to the playoff, but to a bye where they will start playing the Capital One Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire is with us now. Joey, congratulations. First of all, how would you describe what it's like to see this fulfilled? You guys invested in the program. You got the players you want. You pulled it together, and now you're Big 12 champions, and you got to buy in the playoff.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. It was incredible. I mean, the atmosphere last night at AT&T and how many Red Raiders were there, and just I got so many messages throughout the week of what a big deal it was for so many Red Raiders, and it was pretty emotional for a lot of people last night.
Yeah, my high school center was on the sideline, Coach Bryce Buford. Was losing his mind. He sent me a picture crying at the end. They even showed a picture of you showing some emotion, some tears shed there at the end. So knowing that you've lived in that state, you've been a part of that state, part of the fabric of the high school football coaching family, to lead a team to their first Big 12 title game, what did that mean to you personally, Coach?
It was incredible and really satisfying. You know, we've had a lot of people all year long talk about the money we've spent and, you know, how this team is, you know, mercenaries almost. But whenever you walk into this building and you see how much they care about each other and how hard they play for each other, and it just shows, and you know, that this is a really special team. And last night for me, that was pretty incredible. That stadium as a whole, that's my 14th game I've coached in as a head coach, first as a college head coach, and to win the Big 12 there was pretty special.
Coach, congratulations on your season. Congratulations in the game. Yesterday, you guys have looked amazing. And it feels like watching your team play, the confidence, the way the defense is just flying around. How have you guys got to the point that you're at as far as the way the defense is playing? It's just been crazy.
Yeah, Shill Wood is an incredible coordinator, and his defensive coaches are doing such a great job. You know, we have a lot of talent. We invested in, bringing back Jacob Rodriguez. We invested in the D-line. You know, I think that's been the big part of where we've been able to change, is changing up front. And the one thing about those guys, we talk about it all the time. Your resume is the tape. And whenever you turn on the tape, you're going to watch it with your team. How hard you play is you're showing how much you care about each other. And those guys were really talented, but they play extremely hard, and they do fly around.
How much have you been able to watch Oregon or James Madison?
You know, really not a lot with James Madison. Oregon, a couple different times, you know, whenever we would play a night game and maybe they were on, or maybe we played a early 11 o'clock kick and they were on. You know, have a lot of respect for both of those head coaches. They are studs. I mean, it's great to see what those guys are doing. You know, we played Oregon our second year here. It was a great game. You know, we had the lead in the fourth quarter and they beat us at the end. And it's going to be interesting how that game goes. You never know, because we play a weird shaped ball. You know, it bounces in so many different ways. But I have a feeling going into Oregon, that's going to be a really tough test. And so we'll be ready for either one. I'm fired up. I'm fired up. We have the bye. It's going to give us a chance to get healthy, and it gives us a chance to come into that quarterfinals healthy and really fast.
And probably give Jacob Rodriguez and several other guys a little time to pick up a few awards along the way. Joey, congratulations on a great season. Look forward to seeing your team play in the Capital One Orange Bowl.
Man, thank you so much. Wreck 'em.
They have wrecked them. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. They have torn people to pieces with that defense. Capital One Bowl Mania preview. You can log on ESPN.com/BowlMania. Cheese at Citrus, Michigan, and Texas.
A couple eyeballs on that one. A couple good brands. Of course, Michigan lost to Texas a couple years ago. Now an opportunity for some revenge. Or was that last year? It feels like
it was last year.
Was it last year?
Oh my God. It feels like a long time ago. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was Colt McCoy led Texas team, wasn't it? Thereabouts.
Not that long ago.
No, feels like it.
And see, Michigan took care of Alabama, disappointed Alabama team last year, but then Michigan followed up. They'll try to do it to the SEC again, sort of flex that Big Ten muscle. There is the new head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. Pete Golding will join us, about to make his head coaching debut in Oxford against Tulane. He'll join us when you come back.
The College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Taco Bell's Live Más Student Section. Games back to the biggest fans, the students, since 2014.
All right, fans are gearing up to take their seats in the Live My Student section. Taco Bell and the College Football Playoff will once again be providing free tickets to students. College Football Playoff quarterfinals, semifinals, and national championship game this year. Gives you a little bit of the flavor even when you go to the neutral sites, but you get to start on campus. And we'll start with a game on campus in Oxford. The 6th seed Ole Miss taking on Tulane. Ole Miss 11-1, new head coach Pete Golding leading the Rebels out there for the first time. had big wins this year over Oklahoma and over the team they will face in the playoff in Tulane. Pete Golding joins us now as a first run as the head coach of the Rebels. Pete, what has it been like for you taking over as the full-time head coach after Lane Kiffin departed?
Yeah, obviously, it happened on Sunday, and so with signing day coming Wednesday, there was a retention of the staff component. Some of those guys transitioning there, and obviously trying to get some of them to stay here in that transition, and then turning that page with signing period being on Wednesday wasn't a major concern on the defensive side of the ball because a lot of those relationships were obviously already built. But turning that page, to the offensive recruits and talking to their parents, about what it looks like going forward and what's the plan for right now and finishing the season out the right way. So, that was my main focus getting through Wednesday. And then obviously after that, back to recruiting some coaches and trying to get this thing ready to roll for our players to finish just the right way.
Coach, it's been a wild dynamic, and I couldn't be happier for you. You're the right man for the job. I know you'll galvanize the room, but the dynamic involving Charlie Weis is unique. He was gone, and now he's back, and he's calling plays, and of course he's been massive in the development of Trinidad Chambliss and what you guys have done offensively. So what went into that decision, and how do you anticipate the offense reacting?
Yeah, I think, what happened on Sunday, some of those guys wanted to give themselves the opportunity after the season to be able to, hey, am I going to coach at LSU or am I going to coach at Ole Miss based on what's best for me and my family at that time. There was never any indecision with Charlie, when he left on Sunday that, hey, I'm 1,000% coaching in the game for the players. And I just want to give myself the opportunity after this season concludes, right, to whether I want to coach at LSU, obviously with Coach Kiffin, or come back to Ole Miss and continue to be the offensive coordinator. So there was never any indecision whether he was going to coach in the game or not. And that's for the players. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with Kiff, right? That was for the players to finish what he started. So we were never nervous at all. Obviously, that being a public statement was the concern before the committee was going to meet on that Tuesday. But, he gave us our word to Keith and I on Sunday. Look, I don't know what will happen with all this, but I can promise you one thing. I'm going to be there for the players to coach the playoffs, and we're going to finish what we start. So there was no concern.
Coach, with everything you guys have had going on, is it helpful to you to play a team in Tulane that you've already played once this season so you sort of know what you're dealing with and they're familiar to you, even though it's tough to beat the same team twice in one season?
Yeah, I think it's good and bad. I think it really doesn't matter who we play. Obviously, there's a comfort zone from a scheme standpoint and things that you've worked on prior to this. And there's some plans in place that you had that didn't come up in the game that you're a little bit ahead. But, we also know Coach Summerall's done an unbelievable job. They're very well coached. They were a major concern for me going into the game. Obviously, we created some turnovers in the game, and it kind of went our way. But, the biggest thing is refocusing these kids. This is not then. And this is a really good football team that's playing really well right now. And we got to have good plans in place in every phase of the ball. And we got to get our kids locked in and focused to be able to prepare the right way and to practice really well to be able to play our best football game. And I think, that's the one thing, having been in the playoffs in Division II, 1AA, and in the SEC, it's about getting hot at the right time. And can our guys edit their behavior and be able to focus on the right things and prepare the right way and want to keep on playing? And I truly believe that, in the playoff run, it's the team that wants to continue to play by preparing the right way and practicing the right way to be able to play our best game. So I think we're in a good space.
All right, no pressure or anything, Pete, but the last time I remember a guy taking over as a permanent head coach was Steve Fisher at Michigan. They just won the national championship. So other than that, good luck. So thanks for being with us,
That's
man.
right. Put your money on it.
All right. Pete Golding, head coach.
Appreciate you guys.
Likewise. There's the new coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. They'll open up against Tulane. And Mike Elko, head coach at Texas A&M. They, too, will have a home game against Miami, who slipped into the field. And it is a tall task. Ought to be a tremendous game in College Station. We'll visit with the head Aggie when you come back. The bracket is set.
They are dominating college football.
Let's go set the tone right now. Touchdown, Alabama. Unbelievable.
Pandemonium in here.
10-5. Touchdown. Touchdown.
It's now or never.
This is what makes this sport so amazing.
Look at the way it will start. The start is just going to be tremendous. And open up on the Friday night, Alabama, Oklahoma, and you've got Miami, Texas A&M. By conference, 5 teams getting in from the SEC, 3 teams, 3 seeded in the top 5, including 1 and 2 from the Big Ten. The rest represented by a single team, the ACC not getting its conference champion in, but getting Miami in as the final at-large team into the field, and the team the Hurricanes will face, the Aggies of Texas A&M. Mike Elko, head coach at A&M, joins us now. So, Mike, this is a really difficult part of the bracket. I guess you're in the playoff. Everybody's good. I get that. But you opened against a team that many believed early in the season was the best team in the country, and then Ohio State's waiting. What did you think when you saw where you landed on the bracket?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just excitement, to get playoff football at College Station, to know that we're hosting a game in Kyle Field. Once we figured out we were in and we were a host, and at that point it was kind of like, we'll play whoever they're going to bring here. Obviously, a ton of respect for this Miami program. Saw them when I was at Duke, extremely talented football team, and I'm sure they'll be fired up to prove that they belong to be in with all the rhetoric around it. And so, we'll have our hands full in a couple weeks, but it'll be exciting to host a game.
Coach, I had a chance early in this season. I do a podcast with Kirk Herbstreit, and we had Marcel Reed on. And what an amazing young man. My first time talking to him. Talk about what kind of quarterback he is and what kind of leader he's been for you guys this season.
Yeah, I think it starts with what you said. Just what an amazing young man. And I think he's really grown into the leader of our offense. And I think it all starts there. And then obviously his development through the offseason into this year is a huge reason why we're 11-1 and we're in the spot that we're in. I think he's a dynamic dual threat kid, but he's really grown as a pocket passer. And his ability to create explosive plays with his arm has really, I think, changed our ability to play on offense. And so he's done it both ways. We go kind of as he goes, and I think he's embraced that challenge, and he's really led us in a lot of ways this year.
Coach, it's Greg McElroy, man. What a tremendous year. It's been so fun to watch your team. You guys have improved with the wide receiver play. The defensive line can completely take over the game, and the offensive line's a veteran-laden unit. Feels like you have all the pieces to make a run. When you put this roster together, is this what you envisioned? Being here, playing at home, playing for a bye, playing for an SEC championship. I think if the stars align for you, there's no reason why you can't make a run and maybe win this whole dang thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is the vision when I came to College Station. I think when my family decided to move out here 2 years ago, this is what we believe Texas A&M football could be and should be about. A team that's constantly in this conversation about hosting games, getting buys, being in the playoff year in and year out. And, now obviously we've got a stage to go out and show again that we belong there. And we're a little bit the new kid on the block. And so I think it's an exciting opportunity for our program to do something that we haven't done before and play playoff football.
Mike, we congratulate you. I wish you the best. Can't wait to see that game, Miami and Texas A&M. That is a highlight at noon Eastern time in Kyle Field. Look forward to seeing you down there.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming, and I'm sure the 12th man will be rocking. It'll be a great time.
I imagine there will be a lot of people ready to say howdy. So howdy.
For sure.
Mike, thanks a lot. Mike Elko, head coach at Texas A&M, joining us. They'll open against Miami. Chick-fil-A moves on the field. And here's a dude who has plenty of moves on the field. What a freshman receiver, Malachi Toney from Miami, averaging nearly 81 yards per game receiving. That's the second most by any player in the country who has not dropped a ball all year. Extraordinary hands. They can use him in trick plays. Got a good arm, a little quarterback, or a lot of quarterback in high school. And the head coach of the Hurricanes, Mario Cristobal, is with us now. Mario, it was hotly contested, a lot of debate. You guys didn't play. Notre Dame didn't play. And the order flipped today. What was it like for you waiting to see what was going to happen?
Well, I would say first, we did play Notre Dame. So
no, I said
Washington
you didn't play
today, of course, has some anxiety that comes with it. Okay. But, there's always, a little bit of, just waiting around and a little bit of anxiety. But overall, we felt really confident. We felt confident because as long as everybody just kind of abided by the criteria, that we would be in a good place. And thankfully, that was the case. And now we have this awesome opportunity.
It's been fun to watch your group this year. You had a bit of a mid-season swoon, but man, did you come out it the other way. playing at a ridiculously high level. And I think when people haven't understood about y'all, you've had like 7 guys that were starters that were lost at some point during the season for multiple games to injury, and that might have led to some inconsistencies. But it feels like you're coming out the other side playing the best ball of the season. What have you seen from the resilience of your group and the way they really took the fight to the opponent in November?
Yes, sir. I mean, after, in the middle of the season, when we got banged up, we weren't playing at a high level, to our highest level, I should say. But no one ever made an excuse. We just played a lot of young guys. We ended up actually starting 4 offensive freshmen the last time we took the field along beside Carson and behind him. And our team just got better and better and better to the point where by the end of this season, those last 4 weeks, the data is, that of a team that's playing at a top 5 level in just about every single category. So a lot of resilience, a lot of tremendous mental and physical toughness, and a tremendous just dedication and commitment to doing it the right way.
Coach, you guys go get Carson back from Georgia, a guy that's played a lot of football, won a lot of football games. He comes in. What has his leadership meant to your team and the way he's played, especially in the last few games? He seems like he's been back on fire.
Yes, sir. He certainly has. I mean, he's probably the most misunderstood person I've ever been around. Since the day he got to campus, and even though he couldn't participate, he was an absolute elite leader. He was always engaged with his teammates. He found ways to get around them and make them better. And even though he couldn't throw a football, he took part in just about every other aspect of practice, all walkthroughs, the run game, protection checks. He quickly established himself as a guy that was respected because his level of football acumen and also his level of commitment.
Mario, how much have you had the opportunity to see Texas A&M and what you'll be facing in that opening playoff game?
Reese, they're an excellent football team. They really don't have any weaknesses. They're big, they're fast, they're explosive. They have playmakers all over the field. I know that they do some incredible work on third down, really exotic, but they play with a lot of power up front. They knock people around really well, and if you watch them on the perimeter, again, they could hurt you on both sides. They can play man, they can play zone, and on the offensive side, they have so many guys that can run by you, run through you. Just a team that is a very complete football team and one we're looking forward to playing.
Mario, congratulations. I know there were some anxious moments over the last few weeks. Look forward to seeing you guys take on the Aggies in College Station. We appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Reese. Appreciate you.
All right, Mario Cristobal, the head coach of the Canes. Canes ranked 10th, seeded 10th, open against the Aggies, part of the playoff. You can attend the college football playoff, the 2026 National Championship with Playoff Premium, the official premium hospitality program. They've got sweet ticket packages. It includes premier seating, all-inclusive hospitality, exclusive event access, and much more. Visit playoffpremium.com and book your spot today. College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T, rolls on after this.
You're watching the College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
ESPN and the College Football Playoff Foundation support education through sports, investing more than $4 million in schools since the start of the playoff in 2014. This postseason, donating $1,000 for every touchdown scored to support teachers and coaches leading health, sports, and fitness projects. Learn more at cfp-foundation.org. And now let's take a look at the AT&T fan vote to see which team the fans voted for to be the college football playoff champion. And Joey Galloway said not sure that anybody wanted to tangle with Georgia right now, and the Dogs have 27% of the vote to lead the way.
Yeah, just the way they dominated in the SEC championship game. And it wasn't just that, though. Middle of the season, Georgia was doing a thing where they would either be even or behind at halftime and then play a great second half and come back to win games. And the last couple games, they started playing complete football games, with probably their best one being against Alabama. I mentioned, I don't know what other team could have made Alabama look the way they did, with the way they dominated up front on the offensive line, defensive line. Georgia looked really impressive.
They've become a three-phase football team. And what was amazing, it was the offense that was kind of carrying them. And behind a relatively young quarterback in Gunnar Stockton, electric wide receivers, and the defense struggled. They were giving up big plays. They were struggling in coverage. They couldn't affect the quarterback with their pass rush. And then everything started to get sorted out. I think this has been Kirby Smart's best coaching job up to this point with the adjustments and the improvements they've made, but they can also beat you by blocking kicks, surprise onside kicks. They've pulled out all the stops the last few games, and they are playing at a really high level.
Those are the odds to win the national championship, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. Look at those first-round games at home. You know, in the regular season, the 4 teams hosting first-round games, 27-2 at home this year. And both losses came to other playoff teams. Oregon's lost to Indiana, who's the number 1 seed, and Oklahoma lost at home to Ole Miss. So
it's hard to win on the road, Reese.
That's what they say.
It's really hard to win on the road.
You can play the Bracket Challenge, ESPN's fantasy game for the college football playoff. Jen Latta is joining us now. Jen, I know it's been a very disappointing day in South Bend. What have you heard from the Irish after they were the team that was the first team left out and the flip with Miami?
Yeah, Reese, very quiet here in South Bend. It wasn't all that long after the announcement was made that Notre Dame would be the first team out of the playoff field that we saw players leaving the football facility. They were hanging their head. They were walking slowly, some of them having phone conversations, but all of them sort of in shock and disbelief. And I did talk to Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua just a few moments ago, and he said that was the overwhelming sentiment in that room. It was intense during the rankings reveal, during the playoff bracket reveal. He said that it was utter disbelief, shock, and sadness. He says this is a team that feels like they had the rug pulled out from underneath them. He said they thought they had won, and they had won convincingly, only to find themselves on the outside looking in. A few more notes from my conversation with Pete. He said Marcus did get up and speak to the team immediately afterward. Marcus, as we know, so eloquent, often such a great orator. He said that usually he has answers or reasons for why these things happen. He has none, and that was unusual. He said he has no answers. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up why Notre Dame is not in this playoff field. I asked, have you guys gotten any indication about a bowl appearance where Notre Dame might be playing next? Maybe something that the players can put their focus on. He says they haven't even thought about that. He said they're more concerned about supporting these student athletes as they get over the shock of this announcement. And then he said, no disrespect to any of the other teams. They are simply frustrated by the process. Why all of a sudden is Notre Dame on the outside looking in when they had been led to believe they would be in? In his opinion, any rankings ahead of the final rankings are a, quote, farce and total waste of time, Reese. So a lot of frustration here, sadness, shock, disbelief, as the Fighting Irish will not be in the college football playoff this season.
You know, there's a lot of sentiment like that, Jen, that as much as we enjoy talking about it in the Tuesday night ranking show and everything, that many times it sort of puts the committee in a box. And as many times as you might say, they want to get to the end and have every single data point before making the absolute final decision. I mean, this was a tough one to explain. And I've said this several times over the course of the afternoon. I don't have a problem with the decision. It's reasonable. There's nothing unreasonable about putting a team that won head-to-head in over the other one. But doing it when neither team played and you already had an order is kind of tough.
That's what I think is the hardest part, is that it was at the last minute. It was at the 11th hour. And while I am the biggest advocate of the games have to matter, the result of that week 1 matchup had to matter. And it became very obvious that when they became right next to each other, if you're going to acknowledge head-to-head in every other ranking, with Indiana ahead of Ohio State, with Ole Miss in front of Oklahoma, with Oklahoma in front of Alabama, with Miami ultimately in front of Notre Dame, head-to-head, Texas in front of Vanderbilt, head-to-head was acknowledged all throughout. So at least they've been consistent with that, but it just took too long. They should have been closer earlier in the process, beginning with their first ranking release. And it would have been a lot less shocking, I think, to those that have been looking at it from the outside perspective, anticipating the Irish being.
And a lot of these arguments aren't connected to teams. It doesn't matter who gets in and who gets left out. It's the process that we care about, and the process can make sense. Greg, you always use the term overcorrection a lot of times during these Tuesday shows. And in this situation, these are humans in the room. You know what the argument is. You know what conversation is coming. Why not deal with it before Tuesday? The head-to-head happened in the first week. You can't tell me that you waited till now to factor that in. So when we have that conversation, it makes the process look like it doesn't make sense. And that's really all I care about, is the process of how we get to the end not connected to a name, a team, a coach. I don't care which teams. Just make the process make sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think they spent the better part, especially in the early stages of the playoffs, of emphasizing they wouldn't, that their process didn't necessarily just line up two teams. That there was always a group of teams within them that evaluated, and then head-to-head has to be that. Now, I get the idea that at some point it comes down to two. I get that. But, I mean, I think it should have been evaluated from the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all, but to say that's the reason when nothing else changed is a little bit difficult. But I mean, look, Miami's deserving. There are other issues to answer too about teams being ranked in the 20s, displacing higher ranked teams, and all of that. That will be for another day. Once we start the playoff on the 19th, things will be on the field, fun, and then the future of the sport is going to be impacted by the decision that the committee made today. Championship Drive Bowl Breakdown presented by Capital One will be coming up shortly as you continue with your college football afternoon on this selection day as we wrap up college football playoff selection show presented by AT&T. Another peek at the bracket. First round games beginning on the 19th, triple header on the 20th of December.
12 teams, one champion. The wildest playoff in sports begins. The college football playoff first round, December 19th and 20th.
College Football Playoff Selection Show is presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything.
The jubilation when you hear your name called, know that you can pursue that trophy. The College Football Playoff National Championship Trophy presented by Dr. Pepper will be awarded Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida, on January 19th. So a little recap at the top. The number one seed, the Big Ten champion, Indiana. First time in 80 years Hoosiers won the Big Ten outright. 4 of the last 6 champions in the playoff era have been 1 seed. So Ohio State was an 8 seed last year. It's the second college football playoff to feature home games. All 4 home teams won last year. All 4 wins by double digits. And we mentioned the 4 teams hosting this year. 27-2 at home this year. We also have rematches. Ole Miss played Tulane, blew them out in the regular season. Oklahoma hosts Alabama, 2-point win on the road for the Sooners. They get rematches in the first round. Seen 2 previous rematches, both times regular season winner lost. And the most controversial topic, Miami leapfrogs Notre Dame for the final at-large bid. Hurricanes won on opening night, a Sunday night game, beating the Irish on a walk-off field goal. Irish have been ranked ahead of Miami throughout all of the rankings leading up to the final ones, and then Miami got the nod. What's the big takeaway from what you've seen?
Another year goes by, and we always have disagreements, and we get to the end of it, and we have a great playoff. There's a great 12 teams making in this playoff. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. The process at times gets tricky.
Yeah.
But after that's all said and done, after we close off the lights on this show, we focus on that playoff, and it's been great.
Notre Dame will go into the group of the great what-ifs in college football. 2015 Ohio State, 2023 Georgia. I mean, a million different examples of teams that just felt like they could have maybe won it all and didn't. But I think the biggest takeaway is that enjoy this current format because it's about to change. Like what we have today will not be what it's going to be here in a year, maybe 2 years from now.
Not only the format, what's the future and what do conference championship games look like in the future to impact what we see on Selection Day. That's going to do it for us. We'll continue on with the conversation. Matt Berry and friends at Champ Drive Rankings Reaction.